Hello. Welcome, welcome. It's Monday. I know many people have today off, so that's exciting. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name is Aubri Devashrayee. Today, I'm feeling very gay. I'm feeling very queer-tastic, queerific, homosensual, pan-fabulous. I don't know. I'll stop. But I have my little rainbow tabs that I have on this earring. I have a couple of earrings. This one and then another one that I wear a lot. And this earring. Some little flowers and dots that I embroidered on this jacket. I got this hat. It's from a site called Cherry Kitten, and they have some really great stuff. I got a shirt that says "Tell your dad to stop calling me," which I think is really funny and just very true for queer people. So please, tell your dad to stop calling me. It's getting out of hand, you know? But I love this hat. It says sex symbol on it. And I think it's funny to declare yourself a sex symbol because that's just an absurd thing to do. I think of myself as a sex symbol. I am to me. I don't know if I am to other people, but it's just a wild thing to like be out in public declaring yourself a sex symbol. So that's the rationale. It's the joke, but also for boosting my own ego. uh, so there has been so much fucking nonsense happening. We have a very unhinged post by the President of the United States, Donna Josephine Trumpeth. She's very, very unhinged, maniacal, even talking about war crimes in this post, bragging about war crimes. Like, we have had leaders commit many war crimes and they haven't been held accountable, and that is egregious. Like, that is a huge stain on American politics, but also just par for the course with American politics because the system is built to insulate these people. But we haven't had a president openly declare plans for war crimes. It is a whole new level of impunity. And we have seen some people talk even more about the 25th Amendment in the Constitution, which means that the vice president and the president's cabinet can file or something. I don't know what the process is, but they have to declare the president unfit for office. And since we have all these sycophants and bootlickers that are around the president, that's probably not going to happen unless Peter Thiel pays JD Vance to do so. If he feels like Trump is not as controllable, which he isn't as controllable as much as he used to be. So there is that. And we also have updates on what is going on with Iran on the ground. Um, Hello, Slick Eye. Welcome. You came back. I didn't know if you would. Good to see you. Oh, just one sec. That's cute. My partner got me a flower. That's so cute. I'm gonna put it here. Okay. I love that. How are you, Slick Eye? How was your weekend? So I want to go over those headlines. Democracy Now!, they've gotten some great people that they've interviewed that I want to watch. There was a Zohran Mamdani video of him answering 311 calls that I was interested in watching. So I'm going to have more lighthearted fare in between the heavy stuff, just because I think that's all needed with everything that's going on. So I'll be doing that as well. Oh, Stuart Little is my son. Thank you for subscribing for 7 months. Amazing. Your weekend was great. Oh, that's awesome. It was good. I made some potato salad yesterday. Instead of doing any form of worship, that was my form, I guess. Just honoring my love for potatoes. But we did have the President of the United States on Easter just being extremely unhinged on social media. There was this video that I saw. This account is called Butterfaces on YouTube, and they're comedians. They're super funny. And there is a video that they made called Jim Carrey's Clone, because I don't know if you've seen Jim Carrey lately, or how people were like, are you a clone? Are you really Jim Carrey because he looks weird? And I want to play that video. And then I wanted to cover what is happening with conversion therapy. There is an author of this book called Shame, Sex, Attraction, and I want to hear him speak on this Supreme Court decision, just to get his perspective and highlight all of the harm that can come from this being unbanned and allowable in the nation, which is completely ridiculous and harmful. It's a form of torture and abuse. So we'll talk about that, and then get into a little bit of Robespierre. I'm gonna offend so many French people. Robespierre. Oui. That's my French impression. I want to get into some of his writings and have that lead up to reading the Scarlet Pimpernel. That aristocratic propaganda that we're deconstructing. I had someone come in so hot over the weekend on some of my YouTube comments, talking about things that like had nothing to do with what I was even talking about in the video that they were on. I just like don't understand the impulse to like immediately be angry when you don't address anything in what someone is talking about. I'm like, okay, interesting. Are you just mad to be mad? I don't know. That's not my style. Anyway, this is a video that I was going to watch last week, but we'll watch it today. It is by Hasan Minhaj, and it is with Riz Ahmed, who is on the show Bait. He was also in the movie The Sound of Metal. He did a really great job in that. He's a great actor, and I highly recommend the show Bait. It's really good. It's on Amazon. It is class conscious, has a colonial framework that is addressed. It's a very creative way to do storytelling with the way that things are filmed, the transitions that they have. I really enjoy it. So I usually like to start off with something humorous, and Hasan is a very funny person, and so we'll probably get that throughout. But I was very excited to see these two talking together. So let's give this a watch.
Me and you are two ADHD babies.
This is so impressive. Can I tell you something?
Bro,
I don't know what the hell it's
called. Why are you
called.
fucking this up? Represents the
I'm so
community.
dizzy, I'm drinking water.
Ugh. Okay. I should have guessed it would do that because the captions weren't popping up.
Me and you are two ADHD babies.
This is so impressive. Can I tell you something?
Bro,
I don't know what the hell it's
called. Why are you
called.
fucking this up? Represents the
I'm
community.
so dizzy, I'm drinking water in a mug.
You're drinking water in a mug, yeah. Riz, bro,
Alright, let's do it.
can we lock in?
We are, yeah.
But we leave each other very long voice memos.
Yeah. Might take me a month to get to it, but I'll get to it.
Hey, but it'll say 17 minutes, 34 seconds.
Actually, I think
Yes, his
you
look
starting a
is so
podcast makes a
good.
lot of sense. Just getting
I love
messages
that color
from
of
you,
purple
it's like-
on him,
it's
too.
like, oh, what's this week's episode?
Yeah, I'll do that with an ad read in it. Yeah.
yeah.
Checking how your family's doing, brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Riz Ahmed is the most talented person I know. He is a legit polymath. He went to Oxford. He could have done anything, but he just happened to choose to be an Emmy-winning actor and a critically acclaimed musician. Dude, he's even got a Star Wars action figure of himself. My man is
right.
a
I
choking
forgot
hazard
he was
for
in Star
children under
Wars.
3. And now he has created his first
What did he
television
win an
series
Emmy
for
for?
Amazon called Bait. The
I'm
show
gonna look it up.
is fucking awesome. Fun fact, the
Yep.
co-creator of Patriot Act and this show, HMDK, Prashant Venkataramanujam, was a writer and producer on Bait. Now, Prashant wasn't in Star Wars, but
Prashant!
he was in a college a cappella group called Chi-Town. Prashant did this in college. I sat down with my buddy Riz to talk about representation.
Representation
I have a great
within
uncle
a
named
broken system
Prashant.
means nothing. There's no point being in a room if the room just changes you.
The difference between American MAGA and British MAGA,
The big difference is our racist people have less guns, which is great.
and why he used James Bond
is
as a
true.
narrative device for this new show, Bait.
Jordan Peele said when he made Get Out, he said being black in America is like being in a horror. My take is that being brown in the West is kind of like being in a spy thriller.
But we are going to kick things
Clever.
off by taking a closer look at Riz's acting superpower. Quiet intensity.
Long pause. Ah.
Harvey Weinstein is complaining about Rikers. That's right. The supervillain of the Me Too movement is upset because he got punched in the face by a fellow inmate. And he's correct.
Good.
Hitting is wrong, even in prison. It is
Is
awful
it?
to be touched without consent. Anyways, I read about this story on Ground News, which is today's sponsor, and HMDK's
How does it
favorite
feel,
independent
Harvey?
news platform. Ground News shows a breakdown of publications reporting on a story in which way they lean.
Did he direct
politically,
Bait?
Whether it's right, left, or
I don't
center.
know. I
Now,
know
it's
that
not
he
about
helped
eliminating
write
bias.
it.
We all have biases, but
Let me
Ground
check.
News helps you be a more conscientious consumer of the pageant of pain unfolding around us. Now, you may think, yeah, duh. CNN is slightly
I know it's a
left,
lot
Fox is
of-
right. Why do I need this? Well, not everything is about America, folks. Ground News
Oh, I guess
sources
he is,
articles from all
Pakistani.
over the world. For example, there are currently 97 articles talking about Weinstein and Rikers, and a lot of the publications are international. Now, I know
Okay. He did create it. It's not directed by him, but he is starring in it. It is a 6-part television series created by and starring Riz Ahmed. It follows a struggling British Pakistani actor as he auditions for the role of James Bond amid public backlash and family relationships. Yeah, it's really good. What did he win an Emmy for? I need to listen to more of his music. He received an Academy Award? What? He's won way more things than I've even realized. Not like we're looking to these systems as a form of validation. These classist awards systems. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. But I mean, the writing is great. Okay, so he has an album, Microscope and Kashmir. What did he win? Let's look at his accolades. Oh, he has a separate page for his accolades. He has a lot. I know he's been acting in a lot of things. There is so much of his art that I need to engage with. Okay, this is what the Oscar is for. The Long Goodbye. I don't know if I've heard of that. The Sound of Metal is great. I have seen that. I haven't seen Mogul Mowgli. That looks interesting. Oh, he was in Girls? In The Night Of in 2017. I haven't heard of that show. Okay. I'm gonna look at this just to see. It was written by... Oh, it's on HBO. I wonder if it's still on HBO. Okay, a Pakistani American college student accused of murdering a woman on the Upper West Side of New York City. This looks interesting. Purna Jagannathan, Bayman Madhi. They have some great actors in this. Okay. I have some research to do. Okay. Back. Sorry, Hasan, for pausing on this frame. That's my bad.
The Globo in Brazil
Back
leans
to the
right,
programming.
and Le Monde in France leans left, and I'm keeping that in mind when I read their coverage. So go to groundnews.com/Hasan to subscribe and get 40% off the unlimited access Vantage plan, which breaks down to just $5 a month with my discount. Stay aware and go to groundnews.com/Hasan today. Riz, what do you think your greatest quality is?
My greatest quality is, I hope, is that I'm a good dad.
No. Your superpower is your quiet intensity. You know what I'm talking
What
about.
are you talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what they pay the big bucks for.
Yeah,
Now, we're going
exactly.
to play a game, okay? I am going to give you 4 emotional prompts, and you are going to respond to each of these prompts with the same line.
Oh,
I think those
yes.
avocados have gone bad.
I love watching actors do acting exercises, especially these big names, because then you get to see the technique at work and their interpretation of things. And we don't really get to see that very often. So I love this.
Repeat the line back to me.
These avocados
Are you aware of the
bad.
line? Bro, because
Wait, yes, I've got it.
I'm
I have to put
aware
you
of
through
the
4
line.
scenarios.
Good, okay, come
so
on,
just
I'll do this.
just so I know that you've
Okay,
memorized
okay,
it.
I got it.
Okay, let's go. You suspect your girlfriend has cheated on you, but you're not sure. As she comes into the kitchen, you turn to her and you say,
I think these avocados have gone bad. No, man.
Come on, stop, bro. Don't. This is not going to be like.
I want to retake.
No. Let me give you the other one.
Okay, good.
Come on. This is not your audition for Bodhi where you put the tie on your head and all
I did
this.
it. I did so many takes.
All right, hey.
Hello.
You're a serial killer.
He
with
gets
your
multiple
victim
takes.
tied up, helpless in your basement.
Oh, no.
Fucking
As
hell.
you go over to your rack of torture instruments, you grab a drill, you hold it to their head, and you say,
I think these avocados have gone bad.
Ooh.
you're a doctor.
Yeah.
You have to give your
Hasan's
patient, who is
reaction.
also your father,
Just,
Love
aw.
this scenario.
the news that he has 1 week to live.
Oh, damn.
You put your hand on his shoulder. You look at him and you say,
Ambu. I think these avocados have gone bad. Yeah? Yeah?
we got one more.
Okay, good. One more. Yeah.
The head of
Hasan's,
NASA.
like,
You've
getting
just learned that an
emotional. He's like, let's
asteroid is
move on.
coming to hit Earth. As you contemplate the death and destruction of all of society and mankind as we know it, and you turn to a live broadcast to everyone on planet Earth, you say, ladies and gentlemen,
Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement. I think these avocados have gone bad. Yeah, right? That was...
let's set the table because a lot of people don't know this. There is a
The
big
slow
difference
clapping.
between South Asian diaspora in America,
Yeah.
South Asian diaspora in the UK.
Yeah.
First things first. How long have South Asians been in Britain? How long have you guys been in Britain?
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years, yeah. So obviously Britain's relationship with South Asia goes way back, because of colonialism and
Yep.
that whole thing.
Colonization.
So you had, actually interesting.
Resource
There's a take,
extraction.
Wuthering Heights is out at the moment. Wuthering Heights, my hot take, one of the best Bollywood films I've seen.
What's that? Why?
It's basically a Bollywood film, bro. There's like music, there's natak, there's like dancing.
What? It's one of the best Bollywood films he's seen, Wuthering Heights. There isn't that much dancing in it. But the character of Heathcliff, we just read the book, Wuthering Heights. We just finished it. The character of Heathcliff is a person of color. He's most likely Romani or black. And so, like, if he is Romani, then he is of South Asian descent.
It's like a love story. It's like, it
He
feels
should
like
play
a Devdas kind of
Heathcliff.
vibe. That's my take on it.
Okay.
So I enjoyed it on that level. But Heathcliff is described as like dark-skinned and swarthy. Swarthy is
Thank you.
low-key offensive.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
It's offensive. We're having people know off camera. It's
okay,
offensive.
okay.
But he's
Yeah.
described in the book as like dark-skinned and possibly of gypsy extraction and all this kind of stuff. And that's part of the whole taboo of why Catherine shouldn't be getting with him. A lot
Yes.
of, like,
I'm so glad, because this has been the literature girlies and babies talking about this. Talking about how we needed casting that was more true to the race of Heathcliff, that he is spoken about in discriminatory terminology. Like, I don't love that he used the G word, but yeah, he's called the G word a lot in the book. And that is part of his marginalization. That is part of the reason exactly why Kathy shouldn't be getting with him, that these barriers in society, it's like, it's class, it's race, perceptions of ethnicity. So I love that we have a big name actor actually talking about this. Ooh.
literary kind of, academics and people and historians look at it and go like, he was an Indian sepoy. He was basically an Indian sailor or some, there was that colonial connection. And that's actually, and so you had people in the UK that look like us going back hundreds of years. I think the first Indian member of parliament was in the 1800s. So yeah, it goes way back. The founders of India and Pakistan, they themselves went to Oxford and Cambridge. Fact check me if that's wrong. And so I've been there for a minute, but I would say the big kind of migratory push was happening after World War II. Britain was a decimated country and needed to rebuild itself. And so it invited people from its colonies, from the Caribbean, from South Asia, to come and help and please rebuild the country. Yeah. And there was this kind of narrative that actually that's
for
the
cheap
homeland.
labor.
Like, as people who live under empire, like, Britain is the mothership. Mm-hmm. So there was this kind of really blended sense of identity, for better and worse.
Which, in certain laws in the UK, Indian people specifically, at the height of colonization, were categorized as the same as like black people. So there was this like larger umbrella of race that people were lumped into. So it's like, this just goes to show how race is a social construct that is imposed by colonizing ruling classes in order to support white supremacy. And how arbitrary it is trying to just like lump people in together, how that was reflected in laws and such.
That like, Britain is home, even though I've never been there. And so it was post World War II, and you started having a very working class community coming in primarily to help work in factories, to help build the infrastructure,
Yeah,
to literally
cheap labor.
rebuild Britain,
Mm-hmm.
And similarly from the Caribbean as well. And that continued. It was spiked again in the 70s. My family came there after the big kind of cyclones in Bangladesh, after the Indo-Pak War, after dictatorship and the Cold War started taking root in South Asia. You had more and more people coming. So my family got there in the 1970s. From what I understand, obviously you've had like Punjabi, Mexican marriages,
right,
and, people building railroads in California and stuff like that in America for a long time.
Right.
But the bigger migratory push was more 80s, 90s, that kind of thing.
So we had Chinese Exclusionary Act. So a bunch of Asian people came. Then in 1882, they were like, get out. all y'all gotta go.
Yeah, I
Then
remember.
1964.
I remember like I was there.
Yeah,
I remember. I was there.
Civil Rights Act 64. That's signed by Lyndon B. Johnson. A lot of the work of the civil rights movement. Then that brings over a bunch of highly educated
And that's the big
Asians and
difference
Macy's.
because I think
Yeah.
the bar for
A lot of
migration, if you're
immigration.
South Asian in America, was basically you have to have like a master's or a PhD
Yeah.
or something. So I remember coming here. I start coming here in like
These
2012,
class
shooting the
politics.
pilot of the night of. I'm hanging out with people who's like, yeah, my mum is a professor at some. I was like, what? And just seeing this, and then the suburban kind of thing, and it was interesting to me. I think in the UK there's a lot more similarity. Of course they're different. I'm not flattening the experience at all. It's so different in so many ways. But being of Afro-Caribbean descent and being of Indian or Pakistani or South Asian descent, there were a lot more similarities to that. So that kind of civil rights struggle, if you want to call it that, it took place arm in arm. It's a lot more adjacent.
Right.
Whereas over here, it's like, nah,
Yeah.
that is not the same.
No, segregated.
At all. And again, I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's the same.
Yes, which I think that goes back to the laws of lumping in Indian, South Asian people and Black people, Caribbean people, that like from these colonies of Britain, that there were laws that were essentially saying like you are all this second class status, and so that makes it so people were more on the same side in their fight. It forced them to be. And that has been to, and as opposed to what is in the US of pitting all of these groups against each other, that was intentional to make it so that there wasn't more movement for civil rights.
Yeah, but very different. It's kind of the immigrant experience kind of happened in one kind of in a bigger rush post World War II over there.
I want to do a compare and contrast. What does the Rishi Sunak moment mean politically? The Sadiq Khan moment mean politically in the UK for the South Asian diaspora? And then what does the Zohran Mamdani moment mean for the South Asian diaspora in the US? How do these compare and
Who I
contrast?
haven't
How are they
interviewed yet. Calling him out. I would love to see Zohran and Hasan interview. Oh, now you put that in my mind. This has to happen now.
Or how are they
It's an
different?
interesting question, look, I mean, I think that have there been brown politicians before in the UK that are prominent? There have.
Yeah.
But a mayor of London, a prime minister, that is of course significant. I think what's more interesting than their brownness, and I think this is where the representation conversation kind of becomes a bit defunct, is like representation in and of itself means nothing, right? It's what are you representing, right? And I think what was so kind of groundbreaking and
Yes, exactly. It's not just about identity politics. That is this neoliberal conservative view of the world of saying like you should be grateful that you have someone that looks like you or has your same skin tone or your sexuality or your ability or disability, and that you should be grateful that you have this representation. No, who are the people who are representing? Because if they have these horrible policy takes, then they shouldn't be there.
interesting and beautiful about Zoran's win is the kind of, he did not step into politics in a way that was deracinated, in a way that maybe Rishi Sunak did. He did not step in a way that was apologizing for his brownness, not in a way that was pandering to kind of anti-brown or anti-Muslim sentiments. And that's something that I think is really significant. I think that's also something significant with Sadiq Khan. But yes, I mean, by comparison, like, I guess you're right. We've had a Muslim mayor now for a very long time in the UK, in London, which is, our biggest city. I think what is also interesting to me is like how both of these guys are like facing so much kind of racism, backlash, criticism, and in particular, there's this really hilarious meme that's like big on YouTube and on Instagram, which is
What's
like,
the meme?
London's been taken over.
Oh, yeah.
Right, here I am. I'm here with security. We're walking around London like you're on safari or something.
Yeah.
Like you got to turn up strapped. Like, bro, our policemen carry sticks, bro. Take them out with a slingshot. Like, and so they've got this whole thing where London's been taken over.
Yeah.
And like, Sharia law and it's dangerous. Sadiq Khan's London, mate. It's a Taliban.
Yeah.
Actually, violent crime in London is at an all-time low. An all-time low.
Well,
But of course, that's not the interesting talking point. So in the same way that Zoran has become a lightning rod for Islamophobic narratives in the States, Sadiq Khan has in the UK. What's meaningful about those and how that's really different to the Rishi Sunak moment is, what are they representing? You know what I mean? Representation within a broken system means nothing unless you're going to try and change that system.
Okay.
You know, there's no point being in a room if the room just changes you.
I'm
And I
liking
think that's
him
what Rishi Sunak
more and
represents to me
more.
and a lot of people. Now, having said that, there are a lot of very right-wing leaning,
He has a
you know,
cool
like Republican
belt.
voting South Asians, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, brown
As
MAGA.
well.
Yeah,
So
you're
I'm
talking
sure,
about
like,
brown
for
MAGA,
some conservative voting South Asians, that was a big moment for them. But actually, to me, it showed like how limiting it can be to talk about representation as an end in itself.
Right.
Representation is only useful to have a seat at the table if you're going to change up what's on the table. And I think that's what
Yeah,
Sadiq
exactly.
has done.
What
That's
are you going to
Zoran's
do?
promising to do.
So we
if you have a seat at the table, if you're just going to sit there, or if you're going to go along with like taking food from other people, like what has historically been done by people who are seated at the table, this is a metaphor for like making sure that people have a voice and a place in power. If that wasn't clear. It's like, are you trying to actually bring plans and provide solutions to get more people food, more resources, as opposed to just conforming to the system or sitting there not doing anything, which plenty of politicians do.
also
Most of them
have
do.
brown MAGA here. You guys clearly have brown MAGA there.
Well, actually, the chair...
But your MAGA dresses better than our MAGA.
You think?
Bro, the
Yeah.
MAGA here, they're wearing fucking athleisure suits. It looks like they shrunk their suits and the
But also, I have to admit, I think the men in general, they feel like they have a little more freedom with style and clothes in the UK, slightly more than the US. So the population, at its base is just a little better dressed. I think.
goddamn dryer.
How does our MAGA dress?
Nigel Farage is a well-dressed person. He's a bigot, but he's well-dressed.
You think he's got...
Bro,
he
you
can
see
flex.
the
He's got
let me just
pinstripes.
say this about Republican racism. You know, it used to be
So ugly.
in
The
a
aesthetics are
44
so
regular,
bad.
well-tailored suit with a perfect peak lapel. Now these goddamn losers are wearing these Lululemon athleisure
If you're gonna hate
untuckit.com.
me, dress for the
Yeah,
occasion.
these Cole Haan fucking, and by the way, I was sponsored by Cole Haan and I appreciate the money, but these Cole Haan like fucking, I'm at the airport, you can wear it to the airport and the golf course. Like bigotry needs to be refined. We used to be a country.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I guess,
We
I mean,
used
yeah,
to
that's
be
one
a
thing people
country.
do say about
But your MAGA does dress better.
fascism. Fascists traditionally used to dress very well, didn't they?
Extremely
Italian
well.
fascists,
Yeah,
German
totally.
fascists.
Yes. This is what I've been saying, is that fascists historically have dressed very well because they got actual fashion designers to design their shit. And that was harmful. It was bad because they used that as a way to provide authenticity and legitimacy to their cause, which was violent and deplorable. It is violent and deplorable because it still exists. But this is why I always call out high fashion, these large fashion houses, why people seem to continually be surprised by their political stances when they, like, these designers say very problematic, that's like the least harmful word. They say these problematic things that are bigoted, racist, fat phobic, and I don't know why that just can't seem to really get through to some people. We can't look to the 1% for morality, a sense of morality, because they also have very unethical sourcing and engage in colonial extraction themselves. So this is why we have to normalize, like, trash talking brands like that. I mean, I know a lot of people already do, but I just think we need to boycott like all luxury brands because it's on its face just overtly classist.
To dress
Totally.
well.
That should be the new Met
that's the
Gala
one
theme.
thing
Yeah,
you could
OG
give them.
fascism. Just be like, all right, here we have
They turned up.
No,
Yeah,
their
sharp.
collars were on point. The tailoring was on point.
I have no part. I'm not co-signing this. Any of this. I'm not co-signing.
He's invited. I'm
this
not invited. I'm
This
just-
fascism
Yeah.
fashion.
No, it would be really funny though if they're just like, I'm dressed as Mao, Chairman Mao. You know, just,
It's true. Yeah,
channeling.
he had a good look.
Nehru collar. There's a lot of like.
Yeah. You're right.
They were at least well dressed, is what I'm saying. What is
Yeah.
the difference between the right wing movement there and the right wing movement here? Is it also a proto fascist movement there? Is it? What are the similarities and differences?
There's a lot of similarities in they're talking about replacement, the great replacement theory and all that.
Yep, so
it's
fascist.
about anti-migration. A lot of it's about the lightning rod of Islamophobia. A lot of it's taking place along the backdrop of like Western economic decline and rising inequality. I think
Right.
that's a lot of the similarities.
Declining
The
white
big
birth
difference is
rates
our people,
that these
racist
white
people have less
supremacists
guns,
are always worried about.
Okay.
which is great,
Yeah.
which is really lucky,
Yeah.
which is really good.
They're not strapped.
Well, yeah, I mean they get to spend that money on their outfits.
True.
They made that decision.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
That's the
they
compromise.
look dangerously fashionable,
Okay.
but they won't kill you as quickly.
Got you.
As
So I think
quickly.
that's the big difference.
They might still.
I also kind of feel like there is a thing now with the American right wing where it's just like cartoonishly brazen, right? You know what I mean? It's just like the things you read, the tweets you read. It's like WWE wrestling or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I think there is still
imagine that
an
crossover.
attempt often to
There
try.
are literal WWE people who are in the administration, like Linda, like whatever the fuck her name is, over the Department of Education. It's like Trump loves WWE. And this, I think, is more reflective of our politics than it is of like this right-wing movement, that he has largely been so successful in capturing the minds of people, especially like these racists, because he understands optics and a level of like performance, reality TV, how we did The Apprentice. That was the best training ground for Trump to be in politics than anything he's ever done. And that is a huge indictment of American politics, where it's like, oh, it's all just about the spectacle, not about substance.
And dress up British racism as like polite common sense.
There's a decorum to it.
Yeah,
there's a
exactly,
decorum to it, yeah.
exactly. So, and that's one thing that you know you could say for better or worse is that like Americans are much more in your face about what they think, and the Brits kind of like kill you with a smile.
Yeah.
So I think that's a slight cultural difference, but I think actually what we're seeing is like startlingly similar playbook and narratives taking root everywhere, from like India to the US, the UK
Yes.
to Hungary to France.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like the same couple of talking points, like Islamophobia.
Yep, these fascists,
It's like
these people who are bent on creating ethno-states with religious nationalism, they have the same playbook. I wish it was more original, cleverer, but they just aren't. Humans are so predictable. We can be so boring, especially the evil ones. They just end up doing the same shit. And it really just comes back to money and power. I wish it was more interesting than that.
Right.
the gender war,
But it's not.
and
Culture war, and the
it's-
country's
it's
changing.
Immigration,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The UK is a dead empire, and the United
How dare
States
you say that?
is a. I mean, it's an Instagram country. I told you this, that you live in an Instagram country.
It's an
So there's like
instant.
Instagram countries where you bring your girlfriend, you
you
pull up
take
with
photos,
bae,
but
you
it's
take
a-
photos, and,
yeah. But
you,
it's just a
you whisper in
museum.
castles, and you keep it
Whisper
moving. It's an
in
Instagram country,
castles.
you know. France is an Instagram country. Hungary
Yeah.
is an Instagram country.
Do you think why isn't
Great
America
London.
an Instagram country?
I mean,
just out
we're
of
a-
interest, like with the yellow taxis and they're like, I'm walking around.
Because there isn't a sense of valuing culture a whole lot in the US. That with abounding capitalism, it is just constantly tearing things down, building things. There isn't a sense of trying to preserve things. Especially, I'm located in Utah. That happens all the time, where people like take down historical things that have beautiful architecture and they put up these ugly ass like business buildings for tech firms and stuff. That's America.
Today going like, when is like Rachel and Ross gonna like pop out of the next corner?
No,
bro?
there's too many
It
potholes.
just looks
no,
like
there's too
a-
many potholes. It's too
Yeah.
shitty here. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not aesthetically pleasing. But we are so you come from a dead empire. This is a dying empire.
Yeah.
the United States, we're here, we're on our deathbed, we're coding, we're about to die of cardiac arrest. As someone who is living in the future and has lived through the future, what do we have to look forward to as we see the light?
What you have to look forward to is a lot of people claiming that they can bring the empire back to life by doing increasingly stupid stuff,
Oh,
like Brexit. So, like, the fantasy of empire doesn't leave.
That's
just
a
because
great
the reality of
question.
It has left.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
mythology is so intoxicating and powerful. And honestly, the idea of like we once were great and we're gonna get back there again. It's kind of something that has haunted so many civilizations again and again. Like
yeah.
the periods of the Roman Empire were about trying to get back to where we were before, or
Mussolini.
this kind of like revivalism. I think is like a big part of the politics of denial. So I kind of think that the reality of empire arguably is dying, arguably may already be dead. The more forceful you have to be to control your empire, the more shaky your control is over it, probably, right? So I kind of think that actually the narrative of empire will remain and may actually become even more strident. And so the actions to try and shore that empire up, it's like, the smallest kid in the club, like it's the small guy outside the club at 3 a.m. you got to be worried about, right?
Right.
It's like that kind of overcompensatory thing. So I think we're going to see more bombing of more countries, and I think we're going to see more of this kind of like beating of the war drum, more posturing, more grandiose narratives, the more the reality is kind of sliding away from that, because it's like it's clutching desperately.
He's
at something that's slipping through
43?
your fingers.
I was just looking up his age. This man is 43. What? Okay. What's your skincare routine? Do tell.
So there's that to look forward to.
This is going to get worse.
I think so. I think so. I think
Oh,
it'll get
man, the
worse,
worst
yeah.
is yet to come.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about the new show, Bait, Amazon,
That
let's get
edit.
it. March 25th, streaming now. You pitched me Bait at Swingers Diner in West Hollywood. You acted out the entire series.
Did.
Yeah, he basically did an interpretive monologue to me at Swingers.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you gotta tell you something? You invited me to this swingers diner place,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, the smoothies, the sundaes, the ice cream, the pancakes, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And we sit down, and they go like, hey, what are you having? And I'll go, oh man, I'll have I'm in America, screw it. I'll have the pancakes with the ice cream and the sundae.
Yeah.
And you go to you, and you're like, ice water, please. It's like, what the hell is that, bro? You set me up, man.
Set you up.
Yeah.
That was-
I did
That's
set you
dirty
up.
to do.
I did set you up. I was
That
like,
was
let's
some
get wild.
snaky- that was some snaky business, yeah.
I let you take the first bite of sin. But I got an Oreo shake. Stop capping, bro. I got an Oreo shake to cap it off. No whip. They
I
know
really
what it is.
forced you.
I go there all the time. It's my favorite
First
ticket,
bite
to
of
go
sin.
to. But anyways, you pitched it to me.
I love
real quick.
that.
I'm not going to have you do the full, because it was incredible. You actually did the cold open of the pilot all the way to the end. I'm not going to have you do that. But it was pretty
It would
amazing
save
that you did it.
people a couple of hours, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just did it.
Yeah. But what is the premise of Bait?
The premise of Bait is there's this kind of out of work British Pakistani actor who somehow gets through to auditions to be the next James Bond. And when word gets out that he might be the next Bond, people have some very strong opinions about it. So much so that his life starts to resemble the spy thriller he's auditioning for. So, like Jordan Peele said when he made Get Out, he said being black in America is like being in a horror. That's why I made it. My take is that being brown in the West is kind of like being in a spy thriller, right? Against your will. And so I wanted to use
Yeah,
that wheelhouse,
that's
use
the key.
world of
It's
Bond, use the world
non-consensual.
of like
It's imposed.
paranoid spy thrillers to actually do like a
It's
comedy.
so
It's
clever.
about how life always
It's a
feels
clever
like one big
framework.
audition. I think that's like something that people can relate to, even if they don't audition for a living. We're constantly trying to project this version of ourselves that's in control, successful, desirable. But behind that beautiful, Instagram photo is like the panic attack and the loneliness and the anxiety. So it's about that gap between how we want to be seen and who we are.
Right.
And I've told it in this playground of the world of Bond and this out of work actor.
Do you remember the original seed of the idea? Is it true that it came from Chris Morris?
That's such a funny thing you should say. It didn't come from Chris Morris, but here's the thing. So I had been kind of scribbling down ideas for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And those ideas were all about, like I was saying, that gap between how life really is and how it's seen. Right? Let me give you an example.
Yeah, I love
When
that
I-
concept.
When it got announced I was in Star
It's
Wars,
very existential.
people are texting me like, bro, you've made it. You're blowing up. You're killing it. And what people don't realize is you're in a Hollywood movie. You still have to do your own laundry, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So what's
sure.
happened is we've got a
You still have
water
to
leak,
live life.
washing machine's broken, haven't got any clean clothes. So I head out to do my laundry in a massive laundry bag full of dirty clothes.
Yeah. You head to the laundromat.
Pink swan shit, pink swim shorts, bright green puffer jacket, flip flops. Only clothes I have. I tried to wash my sneakers as well. Stupid idea. I'm on my way. I realize it's my brother's birthday. I haven't got him a cake. I head in to Tesco's, which is our local supermarket. I think, let me get him a birthday pizza that he likes. I forget to beep the pizza properly on the self-checkout. They think this is the world's worst shoplifter.
They thought you
He's turned up
shoplifted
in the
frozen
Yeah,
pizza,
he's like, this guy's not well. You know, the way he's dressed and he's doing this whole thing. And he's rushing around. I need a pizza. I need a birthday candle for a pizza. You know, it's a bizarre order I'm trying to check out. Birthday candles and pizzas. And they catch me and they're like, hey, you're shoplifting. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then I'm late. And also I've got to do my laundry and I've got a water leak.
Yeah.
I'm seeing...
Right. You're in
a bit
swim trunks
crazy.
and a puffer, and you're like, why would I shoplift?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally have.
And
a-
then
And being
they
a brown
basically,
person.
The situation devolves to me kind of basically on my 2 hours sleep trying to deal with his leak, going, dude, I'm not shoplifting. I'm in Star Wars. And they're like, he's definitely crazy. You're banned.
Yes.
We're going to call the police if you ever come back to Tesco's. That was the reality. Okay. The perception is like I'm on a yacht with Han Solo. Or something,
Right. Yeah.
And I just started
Yeah.
lining up these
Yeah,
examples.
exactly.
And so it grew out of that, but shaping it into this version of this story through the prism of James Bond, that happened when I connected with my co-showrunner, Ben Carlin, who's an incredible, super experienced writer. Works a lot on the
love
what's it
getting
called?
this
The show-
background.
the show, Jon Stewart show.
Colbert Report, bro.
Colbert
He's right
Report,
here.
yes,
How are you
yes,
getting
yes.
this wrong? He's
Bro,
right
I don't know
here.
what the hell it's
Why are you
called.
fucking
What's it
this
called?
up? He's
What's
fucking it
called?
up. It was
They're
called
all-
the Colbert
Can I tell you something
Report.
about
He's
American
won like
late
16
night?
Emmys.
They are all
Jesus.
called. They are all called the Tonight Show. Every
Yeah.
single one of your shows
Graham
is called
Norton's
the
not
Tonight Show.
called-
No, it's true. And they're all named Jimmy or John, so I wish it was I wish it wasn't as true. They're all named Jimmy or John.
Tonight with Jay Leno, tonight with Jimmy Fallon. All the,
Yeah,
Brother?
it's
there's a lot of
confusing.
tonight.
Have a little
bro.
bit of
That's what I'm
respect.
saying.
It's the Tonight Show and it's the Late Show. There's a difference.
Okay, the Late Show, the
Okay.
Tonight Show.
These are different parts
Listen,
of the
He's
bro,
night.
not
give the
wrong.
man his flowers. You're
I
screwing
agree.
this whole bit up.
All right.
Okay?
Okay. Do you want me to set this up properly? Look, you gave it an interview in GQ in 2018. You were in an iconic movie called Four Lions, which is huge in the diaspora. Basically, the premise of Four Lions, you should watch this movie. You probably haven't seen the movie, but if you're brown, you've seen the movie. Premise of Four Lions is a bunch of dudes try to join Al-Qaeda, but
Can
they're
I
too
tell you
stupid to
something?
join
It's actually a
Al-Qaeda.
lot of white people's favorite movie as well.
Oh, really?
In the UK, it's like a cult classic in the way that I don't know what you guys have, like Napoleon Dynamite. or
I
something.
haven't seen
It's like a
Four
lot
Lines.
of
I
people.
need to
It's
see
like
that.
it's my jam.
Got it.
So it's
So it's a Sunday school
I've heard
classic
of it,
here
though.
in America. Like if
Right.
you went to Sunday school together, like, do you see Four Lions? Like it's a
Hilarious,
very
okay.
subversive comedy. But Chris Morris, writer director of Four Lions, tried to convince you to do it. Then this was written about in a GQ interview. Now, brother, look, I don't always trust interviews. Okay? But you tell me if this is true. He's still
The
worried about
zoom in.
starring in it.
You're in an
Morris put it
interview.
like This is a step towards a brown James Bond. And suddenly, Ahmed says, he got it.
This is so impressive. Can I tell you something? I
What's
thought
up?
finally, if you're doing a podcast, you
What?
could finally leave the whole PowerPoint thing behind
Never.
you. But even doing a podcast,
No, never.
my guy's got a PowerPoint
Never.
thing.
Yeah,
going on.
he's got the razzle
What's
dazzle.
happening? It's amazing. It's very impressive.
Well,
and
what's interesting
unsettling.
is how this connects to Bait, bro.
It is very interesting because really what is James, and this is what Chris meant by this. I said, I don't want to play a terrorist. I don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. I want to be playing lead relatable roles that people can relate to. And he said, this is a step towards brown James Bond. And what he means by that is these characters, despite their misguided political views or their background, will be characters you are rooting for. And so it was that was definitely maybe somewhere in my subconscious. And so like it wasn't like Four Lions led to Bait, but I guess the similarities of this is that you're rooting for an unusual kind of character, and also the style of humor, the comedy, the fast-paced kind of
Right.
witty British kind of sweary kind of thing.
But in that moment, did what he was... Did that seem
The dialogue is so
tantalizing
good
in
in
the
that
early
show.
aughts of like,
Okay, so my partner, it seems unrelated, but I'll tie it in. My partner and I started watching the show Guinness, which is on Netflix, I think. That's about the Guinness family who made the beer. And I like the narrative, like the plot that they are building up, but the dialogue is very stilted sometimes, like trying to be more profound than what it is. It feels a little bit try hard, like they're trying to be very poetic and it's not hitting really. The dialogue in Bait is the opposite. It is clever, it's funny, it makes you think. There are many like things that are sleepers where like you realize later on what something meant. The banter that they have with the characters, it's also real and honest. It's incredible writing of dialogue.
Like,
Right.
hey man, if you do
Being
this
James
role,
Bond?
you could be number one on the call sheet. This is your path to
Right, yes. No, I didn't ever think that I would actually be James Bond by doing Four Lions. Quite the opposite.
Okay.
But I did think that he had a point in that if you want to play characters that are relatable and that a wide section of the audience can root for and not be kind of othered in the stories, that doesn't mean you shouldn't lean into the specificity of who you are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There's two ways of trying to like connect with audiences. One is like, I'm Bob. I'm playing a character named
Right,
Bob.
right,
I'm
right.
Dave. Let's not talk about my background or anything. It's just going to be random. It's going to be like, we're not even talking about it. The other part of it is like, I don't know, like what Cool is doing, you know, what Cooler and Michael B are doing. Is like, we're going to lean into the specificity of our identity, our heritage, our culture. But it's just slaps. And it's like, and
Right.
so people will relate to the specificity of it. So I think that's something that I took with me. And I think Bait is that show that is both very, very specific. I mean, we literally filmed it in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Yeah.
The park where I first
No
held hands with a girl
way.
and first time I got jumped.
That's so
That literal
cool.
park, that staircase. Is
There is a reason why the show comes off as very honest. It's because it's like draws from these real experiences and like set in a place that is meaningful to him personally. And that translates.
show. The first time I had a panic attack when I was about to go on stage to do a club, we restaged that exact scene in that exact venue in North London, Kentish Town Forum.
What?
And so much of it is leaning into the specificity, and the feedback I've got is it people are just finding it very relatable on an emotional level.
Yes.
I loved it, bro.
So it had all these ingredients of these kind of crazy stories,
Yeah.
but what made it coalesce together and tell a story through the prism of James Bond was when I connected with my co-showrunner, Ben Carlin. It was an incredible experience, writer, showrunner, multi-award-winning Don. And he, when talking to him about my life and talking about some of those juxtapositions, talked about how my name had been mentioned in relation to James Bond a couple of times and potential casting in press and whatever.
Right.
And he was like, "That's it. That's the symbol of aspiration, success, manhood, desirability."
Yeah.
That this character
Especially
needs to be chasing,
with
'cause we're
British
telling a story about
actors.
a character who wants to be seen in this way,
Yeah.
but he actually feels like this.
Right.
It couldn't be more different. So
Yeah,
James Bond,
James
is a
Bond
really useful
always
arc.
put together, always has a plan, comes out unscathed. Yeah. And something, I mentioned this before, but I really appreciate in the show that they engage with the colonial aspect of James Bond, how he's a spy. He works for the government, which is a colonial enterprise. So they engage with that, and his character receives criticism for that, and he is very defensive about it. And I really love that juxtaposition. So we're getting like multiple viewpoints on the empire and our roles in it, how we're complicit or how we fight back. It's brilliant.
Archetype to explore that journey of self-love and needing self-love.
So to me, the series really grapples with paradox. And I feel like your work is at its best when it does that. It's not giving these hard answers.
That's
In
a
the
great
West, in America,
observation.
there's very much of like, what is the answer to this? How do we exactly stop this? How do we stop capitalism? How do we stop imperialism? And what you've done brilliantly on the show is you, in each episode, unpack different paradoxes. Episode 1, the rumor leaks that Shah's going to be the next James Bond.
Or that he's auditioning.
That he's auditioning to be the next
Yeah.
James Bond. Shah's father says something. He drops a bar that I think is the ultimate
Which
first
says,
paradox.
"Call me if you need a body double for sex
For sex scenes, that's the first one, which is,
Yes.
yo, a lot of
Incredible.
brown horn dogs out there for older men that still think they got lead in the pencil. Love that. Love that joke. Let's put that on the shelf. But the one that I really love that you dropped in the trailer that a lot of people I don't think are, let's double click on this one, is, ye unki mulk hai, unko mat ghabrao. This is their
Yeah,
country.
unko mat bhadkao, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't provoke them. This is
Don't
their
provoke
country.
them. Don't
Yeah.
don't bother them.
ये उन लोगों का मुल्क है, इनको भड़काओ नहीं.
You know, I sometimes think maybe my dad was right with that, because he'd say that to me.
Well, that's the first paradox, which is, do you dream big? Do you go for it? Or it's like, hey, look, if I do that,
Because our
Yeah,
parents'
keep your
generation
head
was
down.
keep your head down or they're going to throw us out. And our generation was like, they ain't going to throw us out. This is my country. I'm born here and, you know, we're part of the fabric of this. Even before we even got to this country,
Right.
we, you know, our blood and soil and toil built this place in empire.
Yep.
And like,
The
there's an
respectability
argument
politics.
to say that like the prominence of our
Intergenerational
stories,
perspective.
the strident tone of our desire to have a seat at the table, the unapologetic nature of our culture and our self-expression is part of what we are seeing this big right-wing backlash against, right? That actually it is, and you see that, I guess, you know, when people are getting, you know, oh, look who they cast for The Little Mermaid, look who they cast in Cinderella, you know, and you see all this kind of stuff. People just like, these archetypes, these cartoon characters are like mean so much to them. They feel like they're symbols of their primacy, right? And so there's an argument to say that, you know, our parents were right in a way. Is like trying to aim higher and trying to act like you belong there and it's your table as well. Of course, you can have a seat at it. That ends up creating backlash and provoking them. Does that mean we shouldn't do it? No. Of course that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. That doesn't mean like, you know...
no, it's tricky, bro. So I was watching The Martian. This is
But
a
both
random
those
tangent.
things are true.
Yeah, I was watching The Martian, and then my dad walked in. He got super mad, and he just basically said, "Why are you watching this? They're not sending brown people to the moon." First of all, I think he wasn't on the moon. I think he was on Mars. He's on another planet. But I take Najmi's point. He's like, "What the fuck are you? Why are you thinking about
What
this?
did he want you to watch?
What do our
Thinking
dads
about
want us to
Erdogan.
watch? If our dads could, like Navi, connect to the fucking news, they are. The news has fried their brain.
It's
The
the
news in
news.
WhatsApp, bro, it's like this to
It's
their
the
brain.
news, isn't
Yeah.
Navi style. They just plug that
It's true. And does he watch Indian news?
ZTV,
ZTV,
Indian news, NDTV,
yeah,
all of
Pakistani
it.
news,
Yeah,
Indian
yeah.
news, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is that.
So it's an interesting thing, meaning, but I got into this argument with him. It's simultaneously sad and real. He is right. Like, they're not trying to, this kind of Chris Nolan interstellar narrative does not include Bengali immigrants in it.
Right.
Respectfully.
Yeah.
Right? This sort of like, hey, time is my greatest challenge. I'm going to bend
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
That's the greatest. Like, bro, we have real challenges. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Kolkata Chai has brand new tea bags. It is so easy, I literally don't have to think about it. Hot water, tea bag, mug, dunzo. Okay, but what do I think about now?
I love chai.
But real talk, what is a microwave actually? It hums, it dings, it spins, but what
Is this his
making
actual
food
apartment?
hot? Screw you, countertop Chernobyl. Hard pass. Okay, just enjoy this moment for 1 second without, ooh, hello fridge. Oh, my chilly little frenemy. I tolerate you, but I do not trust you. Do you remove heat or do you add cold? Ew. I'm getting cold just thinking about it. You know, I should make some chai to warm up. Stupid Hasan, you're already making chai. But I
Yeah,
forgot about it
waiting
because
for
these tea bags are
for
literally
your tea
doing
to
all the work.
steep.
Wait, is it a tea bag or a chai bag or a chai tea? Nope, no.
Not chai tea.
Not going there. Just
No.
add hot water, milk, and sweetener of your choice.
There you
Honestly,
go.
It's the best chai in the game. I should go tell someone.
I need to get some
If
of that.
stories didn't matter, then people wouldn't try and censor them. If stories didn't matter, then stories would not be banned or
Yes.
they would not be considered subversive. We
Yes.
would not give them the attention that we do.
Then the
It's
powers
part of
that
why we
be
give
wouldn't be
stories
so
attention.
afraid
It's
of
part
them
like,
and afraid
kind
of our voices.
distract people, entertain people, numb people. I'm going to call that entertainment. I'm not going to call that.
Can I just say, this is such a wonderful conversation. I knew, like, these are two very intelligent, funny, talented people, but this is even better than what I was hoping for because they're engaging in such interesting and important subject matter. Just brilliant. I love it so much.
You know, but a lot of kind of the reason why we do is because inbuilt to us is like we have a reverence for story because it's how we make meaning out of our reality, you know, and the weighting that we give to different characters in stories, or
So you believe Nicole Kidman? You believe Nicole Kidman?
mostly. Why? What'd she do?
Man, you know what I'm talking about. Play Nicole Kidman.
The ad, yeah, the AMC.
Come to this place for magic. We come to AMC theaters to love.
Oh, they're playing it on the TV.
To care.
Yes, with the suit. Oh, this really resonated with the queers because it's so camp.
Because we need that.
Yeah.
All of us.
Of course we do.
That indescribable feeling we get
Yep.
when the lights begin to dim.
AMC 16 or 25 here in Manhattan.
And we go somewhere
Here we go.
we've never been before. Not just entertained.
Not just
but Somehow
entertained.
reborn. Together. Dazzling images. on a
Nicole took all
huge
my
silver
talking
screen.
points.
Sound
I got
that I
nothing for
can
the rest of this
feel.
podcast, honestly. This is like this is the bit that I do.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Our heroes feel like the best part of us. And stories feel perfect and powerful.
I've got a take on this, yeah.
Because
Good.
Don't interrupt her.
they are. AMC Theater.
Don't
We
interrupt
make
her.
movies better.
That's amazing. She's got bars for days. So here's what I'd say. Stories do matter, but representation is not an end in itself. You know,
Yes.
there's like this theory of media. I think it is like Herbert Marcuse or someone like that. I'm probably misquoting, but this idea that like actually in order to maintain control of a society, you need to have kind of tokenistic representation of marginalized groups, right, within it, to feel
Yeah,
like they've got
to
something, and actually there's something they
appease
have
the
meaningless.
masses
It's like a
and
Marxist kind
therefore
of like critique
suppress them.
of like liberal media, right? Like we're gonna represent all these different points of
Give
view.
give them a
and
couple of these
liars-
shreds.
Excuse me. I didn't realize we were going to have a Marx reference in this interview. This is just getting better and better.
Of these-
Exactly, it's
these little
crumbs, but
crumbs.
actually
Yeah, yeah.
the structures which you are creating in are still oppressive, they're still corrupting, they're still capitalistic, they're still unequal, and all that kind of stuff. Now, that is partly true. But that's also not accounting for all the stories we're telling outside of those systems. You know, stories matter, not just like when you go to see them at AMC theaters. They matter the stories you tell your kid, they matter the stories you've inherited, they matter in books, they matter in regional theater. The stories, I'd say, are bigger than just like corporate Hollywood necessarily, right? I'm not going to kind of tie the value of storytelling purely
To
to that
AMC movie
arena.
theaters,
But
right.
even within that arena, of course, it's meaningful having, Sinners up there, smashing it in that way. Of course, it's meaningful having Black Panther in that kind of way, and that's because, and again, I say it's not an end in itself, but that's because of what it inspires. How it inspires people to see themselves differently and see other people differently. Yeah. I do think that what stories do and what our role as storytellers is to constantly expand the scope of who is considered human and what is considered human. I think stories matter for all those reasons, right?
Yes.
But what excites me more now, rather than having a seat at the table, is building my own table. Mm-hmm. That's what bait is for me.
Okay. FD Signifier, he is a YouTuber, but he also streams, so go follow, subscribe to him. He made an incredible video essay on Tyler Perry. It's 4 hours, so you're in for the long haul, but it is worth every minute of watching. And he has this exact metaphor that he goes with of saying, like, what's the point in building your own table, like Tyler Perry, if you're not going to let anyone else eat at it besides you? It's brilliant.
That's what Hamlet is for me. That's what, building my company is. I guess like I came into this kind of feeling like, I want to stretch culture.
Yeah.
Really. That's what I think stories have the ability to do. Like I said, expand the scope of who and what is considered human. I want to stretch culture. And before I thought that was mainly about like me just popping up as Bodhi Rooker in Venom and that kind of stuff, stepping into the archetypes that already exist. But actually, there's so many that we need to create, so many we need to invent. And I really loved this response that Dev Patel gave actually about the idea of playing James Bond after Monkey Man came out, which is such a banger, so impressive, such an incredible film.
Yeah, no,
and they said to him like, so Dev, after this, do you want to do James Bond? And he said, I don't want us all fighting over the same scraps. I want us to tell our own stories as well.
Right.
I wanted to add new kind of things, I want to add like new archetypes to this kind of feast. You know what I mean? So no, I don't want to be James Bond.
Yeah. Which is this like, another way of putting it is, we shouldn't be expected to conform to a system, to be grateful when the system is measuring us by its own yardstick. And by achieving these sort of monumental steps within this system as a way to gain a place at the table, it's not as meaningful, because then we are still within this oppressive system. We are still being controlled essentially by capitalists. And then when we're able to create our own art, it means that that's not controlled by colonizers, or hopefully it is not. And it means that, like, exactly what he's saying, we're expanding these conceptions of humanity and why we need to be telling certain stories.
Thank you, man. I thought that was such a beautiful way of kind of getting out of this binary of like this representation matters. Because representation is often about like being invited to take a seat at someone else's table. But actually, for me, the thing I'm more interested in now is like I said, building my own table.
I mean, one of the things you talk about in the second episode, Shah's supposed to go to a very fancy British museum event. He's with his cousin Zulfi.
Which literally they then created an actual one the year after we made the show.
Oh, they
created a British museum, like a version of the British Met Gala, directly after we shot ours.
But there's a really powerful
kind of
moment in it where there's a bunch of protesters outside of the event. Right?
Yes, this is so good. It's addressing the colonial nature of it. Like, one of the best scenes where we see it engage with this kind of discourse.
And it's kind of this really great avatar. It represents the community.
It's so dizzy, I'm drinking water in a mug.
You're drinking water in a mug, yeah.
This is classic.
Yeah, bro.
Let me just get the brand.
In a chai mug, yeah. He tells the protesters, he walks by the protesters, and his cousin says, you got to be outside with the community. You got to be outside with your community. Take a picture with them. And Shah says, we got to get in the room. Like, I can't be with my masjid friends. I got to get in the room. Change happens in the room. And one of the things you've talked about is the power of getting in the room. You've been in every room that you could possibly think of. You worked with every director you could possibly think of. Your discography is crazy. Your filmography is nuts. And one of the things you've talked about in interviews is sometimes you go into the room, but the room changes you. Yeah. What does that mean?
I think that access to power, access to these rooms can be intoxicating in and of itself. And that's what I mean by representation not being an access and your position not being an end in itself. Rishi Sunak being prime minister is meaningless. It's about what are you doing when you're in that room? How are you trying to change it? How are you trying to bring other people through as well, rather than trying to be the only one?
Yeah, exactly. So, are you shutting the door behind you?
And I think often,
are you trying to expand into another room?
To have access and to have that position and have that favor can be so intoxicating that you will muzzle yourself. You will censor yourself. You will leave behind your values and the version of yourself that you were before. And that's partly what the show's kind of exploring, is this idea of like, how far do we travel from home in the hope of trying to represent home? How far do we lose? Bassam is an amazing director. He directed Mughal Mowgli, directed the first 3 episodes of Bait as well. Yeah. He said, like, what I realized, like, making stories about home and writing love letters through my movies to home is a lot easier than being there.
Yeah.
You know
totally.
what I mean?
Yes.
And there is that.
Because then you got to be home with your parents and you're like, bro, this is nuts.
Part of it is it helps to have distance when you are confronting these things. If you want to have the mind space, the capacity to actually engage with it, it helps to like not be in it where you're in constant fight or flight, or you don't have that distance to actually take a step back and be like, oh, that was interesting, because you're living it. James Baldwin talked about this, how with him moving to Paris, he felt like he could actually write about New York City, because when he was in New York City, he was like in crisis a lot of the time, and that it was too close to home, literally, because he didn't have that separation.
Actually, you have to be with your family. It's better to write fictional family
than
actually unpack real family.
But I mean, I guess there's this kind of like representing is like a really there's a nobility in that, but it's also a kind of like way of not being present,
Yeah.
you know?
The other paradox that's really beautiful that you unpack in the show is the desperation of celebrity. So in episode 102, he goes into this fancy schmancy event, okay? And he's one of the only brown people there. There's another surprise cameo by another amazing brown actor. He's there. But you can feel Shah's desperation. He's got to say everything right, and he's got his perfect speech plan. But we've also felt the desperation of our community that's outside the building.
Why are you going in there? Man, sold out. You should be out here with us.
Hey, yo, I just wanted a photo with you. What's the problem?
Bro, if I get a photo take with them lot, it's not the right image I'm going for right now, all right? The real change happens in there. We got to get in there.
I mean, what's your feeling on this whole, like, you know, when my character's like, no, the change happens in there, happens in the room, versus you should be out here protesting with us? What's your take on that? Because the hilarious thing is, we made the show, and then directly after we made the show, this actually happened. They had a British Museum version of the Met Gala.
Yeah, that's
MIA was
wild.
performing,
Art
and it was
inspiring
people
life.
performing, and it was like Indian themed.
Whoa.
What?
And of course, there's the British Museum.
Ugh, I've loved MIA's music, but she has gone off the deep end along the right-wing fascist pipeline of celebrity and being in this 1% class. That is very disappointing, because she started out as very anti-establishment, like many artists do, until they are subsumed, they are captured by the system.
Houses lots of kind of colonial artifacts that were kind of looted and stuff. Some sold, some looted, and there were protesters there.
Yeah.
And people like came up and like tried to bum rush the thing. So it was kind of crazy, like the mirroring of art and life.
Yeah.
And I guess like, what's your take on
So
that
my
whole
take-
thing of like being in the room versus
Yeah.
not?
So
We've
my-
both been to the Met Gala.
my
We
ta-
were both
my-
there together.
Yeah, my take on it is the whole thing of being a public figure or celebrity is actually just a tragedy. Because the thing that you're given, the gift, the tofa that you're given, is the opportunity to change your life. The tragedy is that you try to change the lives of others, but sometimes you can't. And you see those limitations. So you see this thing that's really beautiful and life-changing. And then you also can't get your dad to take his diabetes medication. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I mean,
So
too
I can
much,
pay for my
understand.
my mom's knee surgery, but I cannot get my dad to uptake his protein diet. But this dude will pound Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah.
No,
He's coming to the premiere tonight.
that's so
I can't wait to see
concerning.
it, man. I can't wait.
He's gonna
Bro,
if they
you-
have
what you
Coca-Cola,
said-
he's going
what
to the
you said goes to
Coca-Cola.
the heart of the show.
So it's a
And
tragedy. It's actually a
kind of
tragedy.
the mandate of social mobility, the mandate of the immigrant child is leave us behind, don't look back, but also take us with you. And it's like,
Paradox.
it's a total paradox, and you're kind of stuck in a kind of no man's land. So I think that really goes to the heart of the show. Again, it's like, how far do you travel from home to try and represent change, please? Or
Yeah. Also the paradox of like, be you, don't forget who you are, but don't rock the boat too much. Like, don't stand out too much. Or like, again, the respectability politics. It's like there are all of these paradoxes within, you know, being an immigrant or a person of color in these white supremacist colonial nation states where you are expected to exist and conform to the system. That's what people want, to assimilate. But then they are wanting like cheap labor, they want to exploit people, but then they also don't want people of color to exist. And that's happening in the US very clearly, where it's like, oh, we actually want cheap labor from immigrants, specifically coming from Mexico or South America or Central America, but we don't want them here. And that is the paradox of the oppressor. And then it puts the people who are being oppressed in this paradox where it is impossible to just exist as you are, whether you conform to the system or not.
help home.
Or that's
you know,
the
and
intention,
can you
to
ever
make
go
it
back?
impossible.
You know, what is that about? And I actually think that's something that people can relate to, not just if you're like brown or child of immigrants. You know, so many people like leaving their smaller cities and towns and moving to the big city. It's
to change their life.
to change their life
Yeah.
and to kind of try and help the lives of the people they've left behind, right?
Yeah.
But can you ever go back? Can you ever bring them with you? What is that?
Totally.
The mandate we've been handed is a kind of a lonely one.
So that you articulate beautifully in the show in the 3rd episode. Bro, I don't even think this is a fictional show. This might be a documentary. I'm watching the show and this is harrowing. Full-on family fights.
It's funny. It's a comedy.
It's super funny.
It's a comedy. But we're trying to actually, what I love about comedy is you can
It
be
is
more
really
raw than
funny.
you can in a
Yes.
drama.
There were many
You can be
moments that
more
I was
ugly, more honest, more
laughing
messy than you
super
can in a
hard.
drama.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about
but
comedy.
But at the end of episode 3, he gets into it with both of his parents. His dad provokes him and says, "Nikal jao yahan se. Get out of here." And he said, "Why are you telling me to nikal jao? Why are you telling me to leave? I left to go do something good. Why are you telling me to leave? I'm trying to do something. I'm not sitting here watching the fucking news and complaining. I'm out here trying to change the world so that people don't treat me like a worthless, stinking packy."
That scene, that episode, a lot of different things going into it. First of all, my parents always watch those Indian dramas.
Yes.
And Pakistani dramas.
Yes.
And often in those Indian dramas, you have a massive family occasion. Everyone is in their finery. Everyone is kind of there looking their best. And some like terrible
Yes,
bust-up
tragedy.
happens publicly.
Yeah.
And someone gets slapped and there's crash zooms and there's all this kind of stuff. I actually wanted to like take from that and find what is the truthful version of that. That both winks at
Also,
that
there is a section that looks like a Bollywood film, like Pakistani Indian film that is of that romantic nature, where it's like playing with all these tropes of like lighting and like jumping over large spaces and stuff. I love it.
genre, but it's actually about what is at the heart of that genre. What is it, like the real pain at the heart of it?
Yes.
And I wanted to try and walk a line of both, like with the whole show, both dealing with kind of like something kind of heightened and comedic and playful, but actually just gets to the root of that emotion. So that's one thing I wanted to do, kind of like just conceptually, is play with that thing. Like because when I watched those things with my parents, I'm like, this is amazing, but also it didn't feel real to me.
Right.
I want it to be just as crazy, but also real. That was one thing I wanted to play with. The other thing that went into it is like something about, look, the show partly is interrogating this idea of the arrogance and delusion of the representer. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to help you and change your lives. Why can't you be grateful? It's like, bro, you ain't changing nothing for me.
Right.
You're sorting. You're getting
I love
paid.
that.
You're getting pats on the back. You're getting this, that, and the other. Yeah, sure. Maybe I caught a little contact high off of like having your action figure once or twice, but like, bro, your success is actually about allows them to ignore the rest of our reality. That's a narrative that a lot of people have.
Bro,
right?
I've been told this.
Yeah.
They're like, oh,
what?
you think you having this fancy schmancy YouTube podcast, I'm benefiting from it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're CC'd on the email. But my mom's like, no, you BCC us. We're forgotten
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the sands of time.
You're left behind,
It's too
right?
real.
And there's just truth in that. I mean, that's not just true for people who are artists, but also like politicians, right? The idea of like when you go to another place to represent a group of people in your constituency, do you necessarily lose contact with them? Are you benefiting them or yourselves, right? So it's that whole idea. I wanted to kind of play with that as well, because I felt both sides of that. I've sometimes felt like, man, like this Berendu thinks he's like, what do you think this is, bro? You're not in the streets. Like I felt it from that side to
Right.
some people, and I've also felt it from the other side. Like, man, I'm busting my ass to try and put my people on, try and celebrate the culture, and the people who come for you most are your own people. That's crazy.
Right.
I've seen both sides of that. I don't have a view on it really. I'm just an artist trying to make my work and make it as honest and messy as possible, and that's how life is. And you work it out as you go. But I was really interested in that question. You know, I was really interested in that paradox
Yeah.
of that love-hate, you know?
Yeah. And even the paradox of the platform. Shah represents the celebrity platform, the one who made it through the door. So he better use his platform to change the world. But you
And the paradox as well of having a platform so visibility is not always the same as having the levers of power at your disposal of making change. And part of that plays into these larger systems of oppression where, like what he was saying, it's putting tokens in place to appease the masses and say, like, look at progress without actually changing anything. And instead of actually giving people more autonomy and power to affect change.
You also see the limitations of him being the only one in the room, of how
And
much
also
can I
the
change
people,
it?
and also the people who have not made it into the room often don't understand how tentative and conditional your place in the room is.
Right.
It's like, bro, you walked on that red carpet, you can do what you want, man. And it's like, bro, like,
Yeah.
this ain't my house. You know what I mean? So it's interesting, kind of like, again, the gap between perception and reality. Somebody once told me that the gap between your public and private self is the amount of shame that you carry. Right? I think that's true. I think that's true. That's
The gap between your public and private self is the amount of shame that you carry. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while.
kind of what that playground of shame is where the show is kind of like, telling its story.
One of the interesting things that happens in the story too is Shah has an agent, and man, Shah has to do the one thing every celebrity hates. Brother, I've done it. You got two choices. You either do the Notepad app,
Apology.
you go Ingrid, or you do what I did. You go two camera. And during this holy month of Ramadan, may Allah protect you from ever having to go two camera. But a recurring theme and paradox that you talk about in the show is the public persona that we all have to take. Yeah. And by the way, every citizen and netizen has to go to camera now.
That's what I'm saying. This is not a show about being an actor or a celebrity. I couldn't care less if it was that show. It's actually about something that we all go through. We all have that public persona. We all have that online avatar, that Instagram profile, and it's totally at odds
And
with our
since
reality.
the show explores these insecurities and levels of shame, it makes it very accessible as a universal human experience, and fascinating the way that it explains a lot of his character's choices. Even though like what he's doing looks very irrational to the people around him, it's because he is acting out of shame and his insecurities.
Right? Which is why we feel so lonely now, because we're not actually kind of out there communicating, connecting with the versions of who we are, the version of who we want to be and how we want to be seen. So that gap is not exclusive to celebrities and actors.
We got to get out of here, so I'm going to do two things. One of the things that I loved, just so you know, all right, we got like 5 to 7 minutes left. Talk about adding something to the culture. One of the things you've done in all your projects, but I loved about this project, is you added Qawwali music to the genre, to the form. Everybody gets
And
a
it's
chance,
so
hopefully,
good.
fingers crossed, as an artist, to have your own.
Hearing the music in this show really just solidified the experience and my love for it. It was so... It shouldn't be surprising to hear music that sounds familiar to you, that resonates with you in your culture, but that was incredible.
Show. You end episode 3 with this very beautiful Qawwali track, Sakia or
It's one of my favorite.
Bro, it's beautiful. It moved me
Yeah.
to tears. I watched it 3 times back. Like, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful song. And then I added it to my Spotify playlist. So it's kind of crazy that I have Sakia Orpila and then I have T-Pain like back to back. It's a very strange thing.
Saying similar
but,
things.
But talk about what that means to you. Why does that matter to add something so specific and beautiful? You're the one that put me onto it.
Yeah, I mean, partly it's just kind of honoring the reality and authenticity of the world, right? Like, we wanted to create a world that musically was as specific as it was for me growing up in Wembley or whatever, right? And we actually ended up leaning into a very particular kind of South Asian music for most of the show, which is late 70s, early 80s, Pakistani and Indian psychedelic funk that was used, and disco.
Yeah.
So this is like, India and Pakistan, like
There was
the
also
heart
a
of the
J.
hippie
Paul
trail,
song
coming
in
in from
there.
Afghanistan and stuff. So
I've
you had
talked
some
about J. Paul
crazy,
on the stream.
acidy, kind of psychedelic, funky, crazy,
Yeah.
really playful, unexpected, subversive music, and that's kind of laced in throughout the whole show. But there's this moment of Qawwali that I wanted. I mean, just on a really basic level, like, it hits me emotionally. It just hits differently to me. Maybe because I grew up around it, maybe because, you know, it kind of goes back into my deep brain and my child brain, but also just because it is in the same way that like Fado, you know, that Portuguese tradition, it's music that is designed to just hit you emotionally with a level of like pain and poetry that I think is really hard to match. And
yep, that's a great way of putting it.
So like, yeah, it's authenticity. It's like my own personal connection to it, but also because I actually do want to put people onto this music.
Yeah.
You know,
you helped me understand it beyond
Well,
just the cassette tape. No, but you unlocked the its connection to our culture and heritage. Not only, it's almost like our gospel movement music meets soul music.
Yeah, let me speak
poetry,
on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So on our Sweatshop Boys album Kashmir, we sampled a lot of Qawwali and we had interludes of Qawwali. And specifically, I wanted to use excerpts of recordings that sounded interestingly like rap music. So if you have a Qawwali singer like Aziz Mia, he's going double time and rapping like he's like barring it out, like he's an MC.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to find a way to a lineage to trace my own artistry back to that wasn't purely appropriating from another tradition. I actually wanted to see how I could fuse and confuse it with like, you know, UK dance music, American rap, and Qawwali, and those kind of, that holy trinity is kind of what makes me up. You know what I mean? That's what I grew up listening to. And so I want to put people onto this music, and I think something that's really beautiful about it is, again, it's about paradox. You know, Saqi Ya Arpila is a bartender, pour me another.
Yeah.
And it's a song about God. And what is one of the most sacrilegious things you can do, drink alcohol as a Muslim. And yet it's about finding God in this, through intoxication, through losing your senses, and actually through losing your way.
Yeah.
You know,
it's beautiful.
Just being on your knees at the bar, pour me another. And actually that's where you find God. So I think it's, like you said at the top, it's a music that, like the best poetry, embraces paradox, which is what the show is trying to do.
Riz Ahmed, ladies and gentlemen.
Amazing. Okay. Since I paused so many times to interject, that took longer than I thought. I guess we'll get to the news. All right, let's see what Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Has in store for us.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the U.S.-Israel war on Iran enters its 6th week, President Trump's warning he'll bomb Iranian power plants and bridges by Tuesday if Iran does not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's threats, which would constitute war crimes, came in a profanity-laced Truth Social post on Easter Sunday, in which the president wrote, quote, "Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah," President Trump wrote, using the word. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Naval Command said in a social media post overnight, the Strait of Hormuz, quote, "will never return to its former state, especially for America and Israel," unquote. Just this morning, Iranian state media is reporting Majid Khadami, the intelligence chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was killed in a joint U.S.-Israeli strike. Iran's Fars news agency also reports the U.S.-Israeli coalition struck the South Pars petrochemical facility linked to the world's largest natural gas field, accounting for 70 to 80% of Iran's gas supply. In Israel, an Iranian missile hit a residential building in Haifa, killing at least 4 people. Iran's retaliatory attacks across the Gulf continue, with power, water desalination, and oil plants hit in Kuwait and an oil facility targeted in Bahrain. Separately, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he's revoked the U.S. residency of the niece and grandniece of the late Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani. Meanwhile, U.S. Navy SEALs on Saturday rescued the Air Force colonel whose F-15E aircraft was shot down over Iran on Friday. It's the first confirmed loss of an American warplane over Iranian territory since the war began. It comes as residents of Mashhad are reporting difficulty breathing due to chemical pollution from U.S. and Israeli bombardment of the city's petrochemical factories Saturday. Yeah. Iran says the strikes on the Mashhad petrochemical zone killed 5 people and wounded 170 others.
War crimes.
On the same day, at least 1 person was killed in a projectile strike near the Bushehr
Who knows how long people are going to be
plant
dealing
in
with these
southwest
health
Iran.
consequences
The
of
U.S.-based
breathing in
human
this
rights
shit.
activist news agency says over 3,500 people have been killed in Iran since the war erupted, including at least 244 children. This is Kariyun Haddad, a resident of Tehran.
They threatened a lot. Now, the infrastructure they threatened, they first gave a 5-day deadline, then a 10-day deadline, meaning there's still no news. They haven't been able to do anything. We defend our country. It's not like we want to abandon our country. Now, it's true that some people are with different coverings. I myself don't have a complete hijab, but I will never hand over my homeland to a people who are strangers to our country.
Yes.
Israeli strikes across Lebanon Sunday killed at least 39 people as Israeli troops pushed deeper into southern Lebanon. Israel's ordered the expansion of its so-called buffer zone from the Litani River to areas north of the Zahrani River, displacing about 1/5 of Lebanon's population. Since Israel launched its war against Hezbollah on March 2nd, more than 1,400 people have been killed in Lebanon, including 126 children. This is Jamaat Salim Farhan, who's now homeless after Israeli strikes on Tyre left his neighborhood in ruins.
Someone who can barely afford their daily bread can't even buy a loaf, and then a plane comes and strikes? For what reason? Just because I'm sitting on my land? I will not leave. This is our land, and we will not give it up.
In Gaza, an Israeli drone fired 2 missiles at a group of civilians in Gaza City Sunday, killing 4 people. According to Palestinian health officials, the Gaza Health Ministry reports Israel's killed more than 700 people since last October's so-called ceasefire. On Sunday, Palestinians held a funeral in Gaza City for those killed in the Israeli airstrike.
You leave home and neither you nor your children are safe. Everyone says goodbye to the other before stepping foot outside the house, whether one is going out for errands, school, looking for water, looking for a livelihood. You tell me about a ceasefire, calm, entry of aid, opening markets. All of these are lies, 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 and ink on paper, if there is paper in the first place.
Israeli police forcibly dispersed an anti-war protest in Tel Aviv Saturday, arresting 17 people, even after Israel's High Court ruled the demonstration could proceed. Hundreds of Israelis gathered to protest the government's war on Iran, with the court permitting a rally of more than 600 people. Police still moved to break up the protests, citing Iranian missile threats, and remove protesters from the square. Protests also took place in Haifa and Jerusalem. We'll go to Tel Aviv to speak with an organizer of Saturday's anti-war protests in Israel. We'll talk to activist Alon Green, who was arrested. We'll speak to him just before he goes to court. Iranian intelligence agents arrested prominent human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh at her home in Tehran. Her daughter, Merave Khandan, confirmed on Thursday. 64-year-old Sotoudeh is renowned for defending activists, opposition politicians, and women prosecuted for removing their headscarves, and has been imprisoned multiple times. She was recently sentenced to 33 years in prison and 148 lashes in 2019. She was out on bail for health reasons at the time of her arrest. Her husband, Riz Ahmed, also a well-known activist, is currently held in Tehran's Evin prison. The University of Washington has demoted an Iranian-American international studies professor after he criticized U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran and condemned Israeli settler colonialism. Arifani will remain an associate professor at the UW-Jackson School of International Studies, but will no longer serve as director of its Middle East Center. He told the Seattle Times, quote, "There's a chilling effect on not just my academic freedom, but that of my colleagues.
Yeah,
Anyone
whatever
who
happened to
dares
free
to speak
speech?"
out against the war and against aggression," he said. In Louisiana, federal immigration agents entered the Fort Polk military base and detained the wife of an Army staff sergeant just days after their wedding. 22-year-old Annie Ramos was born in Honduras and brought to the United States as a toddler. In late March, she married 23-year-old Matthew Blank in a ceremony in Houston as Blank prepares for an overseas deployment. In Texas, a lawsuit alleges a 3-year-old girl separated from her mother after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border was sexually abused in a foster home where she'd been placed by immigration officials. The girl's father says he tried unsuccessfully for months to be reunited with his daughter. He says he only learned of the abuse after he filed a habeas petition in federal court. In Wisconsin, federal immigration agents jailed the president of the Islamic Society of Milwaukee after accusing him of lying on his green card application. Salah Sassour is a Palestinian-born 53-year-old who has lived in the United States since 1993. He became a lawful permanent resident nearly
There aren't even words for the inhumane treatment of people by the U.S. and Israel, domestically and foreign. How Palestinians, people speaking out for Palestinian liberation, acknowledging imperialist aggression and violence, killing innocent civilians, that this is a crime, apparently, that this means that you should be locked away, that you and your family should be hurt and abused and tortured. We have to have a national strike. I know there are people arranging one for May Day, May 1st, but we need a concerted effort with clear demands and an intent to strike until these demands are met. Please look up General Strike US, sign a strike card, submit your demands, because we need to make this happen. And if you are interested in a world strike, something that I've been talking about, many people have been talking about, Palestinians have been talking about, to end all of this imperialist violence, you can fill out the form in my profile.
30 years ago, the U.S. accuses him of failing to disclose a conviction by the Israeli armed forces when he was a teenager living in the occupied West Bank. Sarsour says he never understood the charges the Israeli military presented against him in Hebrew and that he was tortured in Israeli custody. The Muslim Legal Fund of America is representing Sarsour in court. In a statement, the group said, quote, "It's difficult to believe that DHS's position now is not rooted in a violation of his First Amendment right to speak out about the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank," unquote. President Trump has proposed cutting tens of millions of dollars of funding to the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, while privatizing security screenings at smaller airports. Trump's proposal, detailed in the White House's 2027 budget proposal, comes as the ongoing partial government shutdown at the Department of Homeland Security is now in its 8th week. The TSA was created in 2001. After private airport security contractors failed to prevent the 9/11 attacks, which saw hijackers carry box cutters, mace, and knives through metal detectors. President Trump is asking Congress for $152 million to reopen Alcatraz as a high-security federal prison. The request appears in the White House's proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and would cover the first year of cost to rebuild the prison.
Where will this end? This evil.
Alcatraz
it won't until he
closed
dies.
in 1963
until the fall of the American
due to
Empire.
high operating costs and has been a national park since 1972. House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi said, quote, "Rebuilding Alcatraz into a modern prison is a stupid notion that would be nothing more than a waste of taxpayer dollars and an insult to the intelligence of the American people," she said. Burkina Faso's military ruler has called on people in his nation to reject democratic rule, telling a state broadcaster, quote, "We must tell the truth. Democracy isn't for us," unquote. The interim president, Ibrahim Traoré, seized power in a 2022 military coup, toppling another coup regime that overthrew a democratically elected government just 8 months earlier. Traoré previously promised democratic elections in 2024 before extending his rule until 2029. Speaking to reporters last week, he said, quote, "Wherever Western powers try to establish democracy in the world, it's always accompanied by bloodshed." Unquote.
Well, that is true.
A report from Human Rights Watch
But
accuses
using that
Burkina
as an
Faso's
excuse to not
military
listen
and
to
its
the voice of
allied
the people.
militias of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity for participating in violence that's killed more than 1,800 civilians while forcibly displacing tens of thousands. And in Colorado, about 3,800 workers at the world's largest meat processing company are returning to work following the first major labor strike in the U.S. meatpacking industry in over 40 years. Members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 7 walked off the job in mid-March to protest unfair and dangerous labor conditions at the JBS plant in Greeley. They're looking to address low wages, a lack of personal protective gear, and discrimination against the slaughterhouse's majority immigrant workforce. The union agreed to call off the strike after JBS agreed to a new round of contract talks set to resume on Thursday. To see our coverage of JBS, go to democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make...
Well, I'm glad I started with that brilliant conversation. I did want to show this, some resistance, so that we get more of the Iranian perspective, which is something I'm going to continue doing. If you have any outlets that you would like me to show or clips, please send them to me.
I think it must be a bluff.
Of hearing the Iranian people speak about and for themselves during this time.
I don't think anyone could be so daring as to touch the civilization of Iran. I think their work is with someone else entirely. Of course, there is fear. It is naturally always there. But honestly, we have seen everything. As the people of Iran, I don't think there is anything we haven't seen.
Yeah,
and the previous war has knocked fear out of us in some way. We know that this is nothing big.
Like, oh yeah, Western colonial powers up to bullshit.
The enemy wants to scare Iran, wants a set of conditions that they have set, considering these infrastructural disruptions, to persuade Iran to accept them in any case. But we know that if we accept, we will become like Libya, like Iraq, like Syria, and we will not accept such a thing. These are just a series of pressures. We have an 8,000-year-old civilization. Those who have a 250-year-old civilization can never return us to the Stone Age. As we've seen in the news agencies, the media, the people of other countries, well, they are afraid if there are missiles and they go to shelters. But our people are really different. from all the people in the world. They are hardworking, their daily lives continue, considering that we see that missiles, jets, and all of that is in our airspace and are busy. But I think our people are very fearless and brave. Let's see how it plays out. But there is definitely a difference from previous years.
It is completely contradictory to the talks that were supposed to help the Iranian nation, and this nation will never return to the Stone Age. The civilization we have, the antiquity we have, will never return to the Stone Age. They should pay attention to their own history, which is only 200 or 250 years old, not to a people who have been around for years and years, thousands of years. And we have the Cyrus cylinder, ancient Persian relic, which is considered one of the oldest civilizations in the world. These people will never return to the Stone Age.
So good. And life has to go on. Oh. So cute.
ابز و خرم و پیروز و جاویدان بشیم. کار ضربان
دارن توضیح میکنن بین عزیزان و همشهریان گلمون انشالله که
That fire that started. Did you see that on the side? She was tamping out. It's nice to get some footage of civilians, the population, the environment, to demystify, destigmatize all of this U.S. propaganda. All right. Hey. Let's watch this. I was interested in this. Trita Parsi has some really great insights.
Now, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran enters its sixth week, President Trump has threatened to bomb Iran's power plants and bridges unless the Strait of Hormuz is reopened by Tuesday. Trump's attacks on civilian infrastructure would constitute war crimes under international law. In a profanity-laced Truth Social post on Easter Sunday, Trump wrote, quote, "Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it," 3 exclamation points. "Open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah," the president wrote. He used the actual word Iranian officials warned with retaliating with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Naval Command, saying in a post on X, the Strait of Hormuz, quote, will never return to its former state, especially for America and Israel, unquote. Earlier this morning, Iranian media reported explosions after an Israeli attack on the South Pars petrochemical complex in the city of Asal-Yulia. The South Pars is one of the world's largest natural gas reserves, shared between Iran and Qatar on the Persian Gulf. South Pars accounts for about 70 to 80% of Iran's gas supply. A separate U.S.-Israeli strike also targeted South Pars facilities in Iran last month. Meanwhile, Iranian state media reported today that Majid Khademi, intelligence chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was killed in a joint U.S.-Israeli strike. For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, author of several books, including Losing an Enemy, Obama, Iran, and the Triumph of Diplomacy. We're certainly not seeing any triumph of diplomacy right now, Trita Parsi. If you can talk about President Trump's expletive-laced Easter Day message to Iran.
Oh, I said she.
What we're seeing here is a repeat of previous threats and deadlines, but now, of course, with far greater tone of desperation from Trump. He has issued threats of this kind several times before. He hasn't fully acted on them, backed down, recognizing that he doesn't have escalation dominance. He cannot escalate his way out of this conflict, because if he goes after the power plants on a large scale, the Iranians will do the same to the infrastructure in the GCC and Israel, and the situation will become much worse, particularly in terms of oil prices shooting up. Nevertheless, he is increasingly desperate because he's realizing he cannot just end the war by walking away. He has to have some sort of a negotiated settlement. But the negotiated settlement will be very different from the one that he first had in mind, because the realities on the ground are such that he is not in a dominant position. He cannot dictate terms. And as a result, now he's trying to issue these ultimatums in the hope that the Iranians will surrender. But there's no sign whatsoever that the Iranians are in the mood of a surrender or even accepting his deadline. The Iranians are not going to accept a ceasefire that puts them in the same position as Lebanon and Gaza have been put in when they have agreed to ceasefire by the United States and Israel, which have turned out to be just temporary pauses in order for the United States or Israel to be able to regroup, rearm, and then relaunch attacks. And this is clearly frustrating Trump, because he's realizing he's not in that position of dominance that he thought he would be.
If you could talk about
I'm going to put it here.
The significance of South Pars right now, owned the north part run.
Will you let me know if that one works for you? I'm going to update. If it does, I'll update the link in the profile. I'm just going to pull this up. Okay, amazing. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. I just updated it in the profile. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining the Discord. There isn't like a whole lot of like conversation that happens. I'm not always the most active on it, but I do send VODs. If you have ideas for videos, I mean, you can do what you want there. Hi, Teeny. She's making an appearance. Hi, Bug. Hi. Come here. We'll see if she jumps up here.
By Qatar, the South, Iran, and of course, it is a major source of energy for Iran, like 70 to 80% of its energy, threatening to blow that up, as well as bridges.
So Southwest is a very important field for the Iranians. It's shared. The gas field is shared with Qatar, although Qataris are extracting much more gas out of it because the Iranians don't have the technology, given all of the sanctions that have been imposed on Iran for a significant amount of time. Asawliya is another place nearby that is now being attacked currently by the Israelis that is critical for Iran's domestic energy consumption. And we have seen that when those fields or facilities have been struck in the past, the Iranians have retaliated. It was when the Israelis attacked South Pars last time that the Iranians struck at these gas facilities inside of Qatar that set those back 3 to 5 years. It's very important to understand the difference here in the sense that we have an oil problem right now because a lot of tankers are being stuck in the Persian Gulf. They cannot transit through, but the oil is still being extracted out of the ground. The infrastructure of oil has not been targeted on a large scale. If Trump escalates, then those will likely be targeted. And then you don't only have a bottleneck problem, you also have a production problem. The bottleneck problem can be resolved relatively quickly and oil prices can go down. But if you have a production problem, that means that the production will not go up for quite some time. And that will create a much longer term problem on the oil markets. And that would be much, much worse than the current situation. So the Iranians have a lot of different ways that they can escalate matters further. Trump is aware of this, of course. This is part of the reason why he hasn't acted on a lot of his threats. But he seems to be getting increasingly desperate, and he may actually take steps that will be absolutely devastating for the global economy and for his own presidency.
If you can respond to, The Guardian just said, Iran confirms it's received ceasefire plan, but says U.S. isn't ready for peace. The U.S.-Iran group of regional mediators discussed the terms for a potential 45-day ceasefire that could lead to a permanent end to the war. And then you have Ali Abu Nima tweeting a few hours ago, U.S. is trying...
I have to tell you, on Friday, I listened to that Same Things song. It is so good. And I've been listening to more of their music. Thank you for the recommendation.
With Iran, the same approaches with Gaza, phased agreements which the Americans and Israel will break, and vague future arrangements to be hammered out in an indeterminate future. Your response?
Ali is absolutely right. This is the concern and the fear on the Iranian side. Any type of a ceasefire would be to the benefit of
I love
the
that.
United States and Israel. They would not end the war. It
Good
would just
for
be a
you. I
tactical
hope it's a
pause.
good trip.
In the meantime, the Iranians would be giving up a lot of their leverage, for instance, the control over the Straits. So I don't see any chance of that succeeding at all unless it is coupled with not this type of a phased approach, but there is actually a full agreement. That
you decided not to. What made you change your mind?
The Iranian position, I think, in some ways have evolved and frankly hardened. The Straits is not necessarily a tool they will use for negotiations to end the war, but rather something that they will use after the war, the control of it, in order to establish this mechanism in which countries will have to pay transit fees to go through the Straits. And they will use that to restore economic relations with a lot of countries in the world that they used to have economic relations with, but who have essentially stopped dealing with Iran economically because of U.S. pressure. All of those countries, nevertheless, need access to the Straits, and the Iranians are essentially planning to use their control of the Straits to reestablish those economic relations rather than as a leverage to end the war.
Best of luck
Your
with that.
Your response to President Trump telling Fox News the U.S.
if only things weren't so expensive.
A lot of guns to the Iranian protesters.
That's
we
a great
sent guns
cause.
through the Kurds. I think the Kurds kept them, unquote.
So here's a very important revelation. We saw that during the protest in December and January,
that's
that
great.
There were some things that were very, very
if you feel like they know how to use the funds
We saw
well.
that there were elements within the protest movement
Definitely
or
worth it.
acting underneath the protest movement that used massive amounts of violence, both against civilian infrastructure, mosques, banks, etc., fire stations, but also against government forces. That's why a lot of government forces were killed, which we had simply not seen before. These were armed elements They operated in a rather professional and systematic way. And a lot of protesters, I spoke to some of the protesters who were out there genuinely protesting against the policies of the government, saw these forces and were quite stunned because they had never seen anything like that before. Now we have the revelation, which a lot of people suspected, but we have it from the horse's mouth, saying that the U.S. actually was providing weapons to the Kurds and other armed elements inside the country. This, I think, shows that the image we had originally, that this was just peaceful protesters clamped down by the government, was perhaps a bit simplistic. There were overwhelmingly peaceful protesters, but within them or underneath them, there were other elements that were using the protest to essentially start a violent conflict and uprising.
And then
that was clamped down together with a lot of peaceful protesters. The Iranian government seemed to have not made much of a distinction between the two and killed several thousand people.
For people to get
very different
your needs met, you know.
What you had in 2009,
That's why
for instance, in which the
these collectives, mutual aid, it's so important. Like, we have to protect our own, help each other. We can't rely on these systems to do that.
This is Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghi responding to Trump's threat to attack civilian infrastructure if the new deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz is not met.
Any such attack.
Our
armed forces have made it clear that in case Iran's infrastructure is attacked, we would react in kind. Our armed forces would target any similar infrastructure that is owned or in any way or manner related to the United States or contributes to their act of aggression against Iran. This is not something that we will do it voluntarily or by willful decision. This is something that is as part of our
the powers that be prove unreliable
defense measures
food,
against
water.
their illegal act.
Yeah. They're too busy.
So that was the Iranian
starting
Foreign Ministry
wars,
spokesperson. If you can respond to what he said,
enriching themselves.
So this is a continuation of what we've seen in the past, that the Iranians will retaliate in kind, but they will target the facilities that they have within their reach that are mainly in the GCC states, which then will
enriching
be
themselves,
the GCC states
committing
in
crimes,
a terrible situation, but the entire
terrorizing civilians.
We've seen that the Iranians have targeted American bases and other facilities,
being loyal to their donors and corporations that support them.
We have now also seen emerging evidence that many of these countries' territory
I'm glad that you
and
have that
airspace
collective.
was used
That's great.
by the United States to attack Iran. Now, whether those countries started allowing them to be used after the Iranians started attacking them, or whether those attacks were taking place from the outset, or whether those attacks from their airspace or territory is being conducted without the approval of these governments.
You have good friends too. That's amazing.
Unclear at this point. But the fact that
a good support system
is being used,
I mean, especially for us queer people, chosen
Kuwait,
family,
Bahrain, Saudi Arabia,
is so
UAE,
important.
At this point is not quite clear. Evidence has emerged of that. And that's a very negative and dangerous development, particularly if it eventually leads to the Saudis and the Emiratis fully joining in on the war. That will be, again, we've already seen this conflict spread, but that will be a major, major escalation and will make it much more difficult to be able to bring this war to an end.
Can you talk about Iranian intelligence agents arresting the prominent human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh at her home, according to her daughter? She's 64 years old.
Yeah, you need to keep me updated on that.
Sotoudeh, renowned for defending activists, opposition politicians, and women prosecuted for removing their headscarves. Are you concerned about the possibility
she was just
that
arrested
in prison, who knows by what side, could also be bombed, which of course is where so many dissidents are held?
I have heard as well, there was something that came out recently. Trump said some classified information. Like, of course, when this dementia-riddled maniac, narcissist, which is why we need a national strike, we need a world strike to stop everything that is happening, this imperialist violence and extraction. And corporate greed, AI, all of this bullshit. But he said, what did he say? That they were arming Iranian protesters and hinted that like Israel was also doing this because they're trying to encourage strife and discord. And like, this is something we expected, or it's not surprising. Like, it's par for the course for the US and Israel to do this kind of shit. But yeah, this is falling empire shit.
We saw that in the June war that these
It's good it's falling. I just wish there wasn't
whether they did
so much death
because they believed that that actually
and
would be
violence.
a beneficial act that would bring people out in the streets of protesting or put them on the side of being opposed to the repression of the Iranian government is unclear. But it really did backfire on the Israelis. Whether they would do it again remains to be seen. So far, they've been focused more on attacking pharmaceutical factories and also universities. But I think
heard Trump died. Is that true? If only. I
heard
he was in the hospital, but they tried to like
being changed in a much
dispel those rumors.
Direction. This
I don't know if he is anymore.
Of this war that was illegally launched by Israel and
He's
the United
just like
States. It was also highly predictable
walking
that
corpse
under these circumstances, the Iranian government would likely become
vitriol
more repressive and have more
self-aggrandizement
on the political space in the country.
But also, like, JD Vance, his vice president, is a horrible person who's controlled by Peter Thiel.
Apparently have thought. The track record was
and
already very clear.
He also would be a scary person to have in power.
See the most repressive and
which is why like the whole administration needs to step down.
Tell us also if you're able to communicate with people in Iran. The state imposed near total internet shutdown, now the longest nationwide blackout on record of any country.
Eventually.
It is very
he can't live forever. He's very concerned about his legacy right now. So it's like, yeah, he's on the outs.
Blackout that we saw on January 8th till
they won't step down. It will have to be us demanding it, which I think it will only happen
but it is nevertheless
with a national strike.
And I don't see any likelihood of that opening up as long as the war continues to go on.
Finally, are you concerned the U.S. or Israel would use
because our
nuclear bomb
representatives
against Iran?
Are spineless, like we were just talking about, just bought and sold.
I have been quite taken aback
so
by seeing
it
that
has to be up to us.
Officials are
we save
very
ourselves
that this is an option on
time
the
and
table.
time
it
again.
Comes out of the fact that Trump appears to be increasingly desperate. He could end up going on bombing Iran for another 2 weeks, trying to achieve some major spectacle and then just walk away, knowing that he doesn't have the ability or the patience for the real diplomacy that is needed, doesn't have the willingness to give compromises. So he may just escalate it in a
I think we all need a lock-in of like, okay, what's the plan? How do we make this happen?
And that could potentially include the
especially in the U.S. with all of the like fractured media. It is so hard to have any sort of like consistent messaging
by former officials
to the
masses. An option
masses.
that Trump is looking at, or the Israelis are looking at, is telling us about how badly this war is going, how desperate the situation is becoming, and how tremendously, tremendously dangerous this would be for the entire world. As one former official told me, this would make the United States the absolutely most hated country in the world if it uses a nuclear weapon as a way of just demonstrating its military superiority.
I'm very concerned about that possibility. About Trump, in order to avoid accountability because he's a narcissist and hasn't been held accountable in his life, that he will use a nuke. I'm really afraid of that, and we need to stop him before that. I need to figure out how to start protests. I know. I think, like how, like getting a group of people, especially when it comes to like rapid response too, so that like communication can happen fast and we can respond quickly to events as they happen. Because a lot of the time, especially in this modern age, it's like, oh, this protest is planned for this day. But like before we had social media and that kind of like immediate form of communication, people would be upset by world events and then just like go to places and be like, yeah, we're protesting. And I think that needs to be brought back. But we also need to be doing it with demands. That like protests need to be paired with demands so that we can actually have them be met. Otherwise, like they don't fear our protests. Yeah, if you have any like techniques or like as you're learning about that, like do share. Okay, so this is on a lighter note. Mayor Mamdani answers 311 calls. I saw this and I was intrigued as to what this will include. Oh, but just to finish up a thought with the previous video, there are more Israeli protests happening against this war. I don't think it's because there's like all of these people who are anti-war in general. Because we have seen that, you know, the majority of the populace within Israel is very bloodthirsty in many ways. Not everyone, but we have also seen that they're getting strikes. They're on the receiving end of some violence, more than they have in a really long time. So that has a direct result of people being like, oh, this is real. We're not always, so people fight back. Like when you have people who fight back, like now we don't want to be doing this war. So it's like that is something that the US is missing specifically, is that since all of this foreign aggression is happening overseas, that people are able to grow more and more bloodthirsty and warmonger-like because they are not on the receiving end of violence and aren't afraid of blowback. But we know that 9/11, that was blowback from US intervention and violence and aggression in the Middle East. And that's going to happen again. Like with falling empire, like I don't think Americans are really conceptualizing how angry a lot of the world is at American violence and empire hegemony. So that will be a rude awakening, but people need it. I only know how to form black blocs. Only learned how to recently. Oh, I don't recognize that term. What is that? I want to learn more about this.
311, this is Mayor Mamdani. How can I help you?
It's great working with 311. We're here to help.
Wikipedia.
Look up
True.
certain resources for them.
The internet.
Apartment maintenance, noise complaints, potholes. There's a wide variety. I'm Tangi Williams, and I work with 311 as a call center representative.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm Tangi Williams.
Oh, such a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
I've heard so much.
Okay, here we go. A black bloc, sometimes black bloc with a K, is a tactic used by protesters who wear black clothing, ski masks, scarves, sunglasses, motorcycle helmets with padding and other face concealing and face protecting items. Oh, okay. This is something that I do unknowingly. I didn't know that's what it was called, but yeah, this is what we all need to be doing at protests, especially when we're living in a police state and they are targeting protesters. It's a form of tradecraft where everyone dresses in black to hide their identities, like the masks from V. Yeah, except in our universe, people chose black instead of masks. Yeah, I love that. And it can be like the optics are important. It's practical and it just visibly shows the unity, which is cool. is to get away with direct action. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like the optics are important in addition to like the action, because so often we just have optics, but it's like they do play a part. That's something that fascists understand very well. They understand optics, that like if you have the appearance of power and cruelty and fear, that has an influence. Yeah, this is really cool. I was gonna... Oh, from pepper spray. Yeah, so it's practical and showing a united front. I love that. Very cool. Thank you for letting me know about that.
Thank you.
You ready to take these calls? Yes, yes. She'll navigate and help you with everything. Perfect. I'll listen to one or two and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Did you listen to Solidarity Forever, illegal version? No. I'll do that for this week's Culture Corner on Friday. Thank you for reminding me.
Welcome to 311.
30 minutes.
Yes.
I thought we were just doing a training call. I want to take one now.
All right. Okay.
Hello, this is 311. My name is Zoran. How can I help you? I see that you're calling about an abandoned vehicle. So is this on public property or private property, sir? You just give me one moment. I'm going to put you on a brief hold. He said no plates.
Trash inside.
Yeah, trash inside.
So then he'll just give us the address and we just tell him thank you for holding.
I hear you, sir. I appreciate that. We're going to follow up on this one, and I know someone who I think can resolve this for you. Okay. Thank you very much.
People will call and access anything. The ones that tug at my heart, where an elderly person needed help on getting things fixed in her
Look
home.
for people from impolite society.
She was by herself, didn't have any family. And I was able to assist them and
Wow.
and talk it through. That puts a smile on my face that I was able to.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering like who the system is calling a criminal, because so often this is like, it includes people who are engaged in petty crime and not white collar crime too. Those people are never described in terms of criminality. But yeah, people who are willing to actually do something. A lot of anarchists there, I'm sure.
Help them.
Thank you for calling 311. This is Mayor Mamdani. How can I help you? This is the mayor. Let me just check. You said you have a mirror. It's not too big, it's not too small, and you're asking whether that you can put that out for a recycling day. She didn't even blink.
No.
She was like, I have a question.
So there's many ways they could find out about 311 resources. Text, online, and over the phone with a representative, a live person, if you're not tech savvy, to do it online.
So we are submitting this to the Taxi and Limousine Commission.
This is a smart way to educate about
so
311 services.
You're very
And it
welcome.
shows
Have a
that
lovely
he's
day.
involved.
Bye-bye.
Even willing to like go through the performance of this.
That was great.
If we're looking at it cynically.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We gotta go figure out about Tony's car. We gotta get that black BMW taken away.
Yes.
During this time where people are saying, like Trump just said, like, we can't... Teeny? You okay? She just like jumped on this like metal thing. Just made a loud sound. Trump just recently said, he was like, yeah, we can't do healthcare, we can't do daycare, we have wars to fight, even though he's not supposed to say war, because like, then that means it's illegal, which we all know, because he should have gotten congressional approval. But the fact that he's saying like, we can't do all this, and then we have politicians who are progressive actually willing to engage in establishing a social safety net, it isn't something that will liberate us, per se. We don't find liberation through electoral politics, but it can better the material conditions that people are living in the meantime. Okay, So, back to the shitty stuff. This is Israeli peace activist. Gaza, Iran, and Lebanon are all part of one forever war. I really wanted to watch this. And I don't think I have time for this shame, sex, attraction overview by the author. So I think I'm going to include it tomorrow.
It's Saturday. As Israeli
I was interrupting too much at the beginning. I was just so excited about the Hasan, Minhaj, and Riz Ahmed interview.
The arrest came despite an order by Israel's top court that allowed the demonstration to proceed. Israeli police still moved to break up the protests, claiming Iranian missile threats. Protests also took place in Haifa and Jerusalem. Haaretz reported a missile launched by Yemen's Houthis triggered a siren in Tel Aviv around the time of Saturday's demonstration. But police reportedly refused to take the arrested protesters
I actually saw a
to an
Palestine
underground
sign,
bomb
Justice
shelter.
for Palestine. That's good to see.
Co-director of the Israeli-Palestinian grassroots group Standing Together and an organizer of Saturday's anti-war protest in Tel Aviv, was among those taken into custody. He'll join us in a minute, but first, this is the video footage of his arrest.
Keep opposing and resisting this war. We will continue to oppose this war. Every Israeli must oppose and resist this war, against the war in Iran and the war in Lebanon. It's war that hurts the people of Israel.
And the
It hurts our
genocide.
rights, the dead, the children, the close business.
Alon
And the
Green was
genocide.
arrested at the anti-war protest in Tel Aviv and released approximately 7 hours later. He joins us now on Democracy Now! We're speaking to you first, Alon, because you have to appear in court right after this interview. First of all, explain why hundreds of Israelis, not only in Tel Aviv, also in Haifa and Jerusalem, are protesting this past weekend. Why you were out there, why you got arrested.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. It's actually thousands of Israelis have gone out to the streets this week, and it's a protest that is growing in Israel. People know that this war will not bring us any safety, that this war is only causing harm to the people of the Middle East, to the Lebanese, to the Palestinians, to the Iranians, and also to the Israelis. We pay a price of destroyed families, people that are dying, houses that are being demolished. It is a reality of war, and this war is a war that was initiated by Trump and Netanyahu, and we resist this war because it's a forever war. Israel is moving from Gaza to Lebanon, to the West Bank, to Iran,
I'm
and
glad
then
you
it
mentioned
goes
Gaza.
back to the same front. And
and
they
the
tell
West
us
Bank.
that this is for our security.
Good.
But in reality, we all pay a price and we all lose from this war.
Protesters held
Yeah.
up photos.
I mean,
Alon.
if you're a human being and care about other human beings, you should be like, oh, war is bad. Like, why is this a thing? Because there are people who are bent on expanding power, who already have power, and the rest of us are cannon fodder for them.
Of children who've been killed in Iran, in Lebanon, in Israel, in Gaza, and the West Bank. Can you talk about the connections between Israel's war in Iran and attacks on Lebanon, as well as Israel's settler violence in the West Bank and the continued killing of Palestinians in Gaza?
Yeah, the fact that Israel, the US, that there has been targeting of children, this is standard. This is what these entities do. Just violence with impunity, and it is evil. I'm not a religious person at all. But to be targeting children is evil. And I mean, civilians as well, but especially the way that Israel and the US go out of their way to kill and hurt children. It's almost as if, like, all of these leaders who are hurting children also hurt children in other ways, like them being in the Epstein files.
I think all these different fronts, all these different scenes are merging into one forever war that our government and governments have tried to keep alive in order to stay in power, in order to incite the people in our society against, imagined enemies. They believe that if they will kill people in Gaza and then allow settlers to murder people in the West Bank and then attack in Iran and attack in Lebanon, the Israeli public will stay silent and that they will think that this is not a time for protesting. But I think the Israeli public is waking up. A lot of people are angry. It's been 3 years now of constant war. People are tired. People want different realities for their families. People lose their sons and daughters that are sent to kill and get killed in the army. And I believe that this is also an opportunity for the left wing in Israel to connect the struggle to the interests of the Palestinians, of the Lebanese, of the people of the Middle East, to the interest of the Israeli people, because the prices that people are paying is not the same price. I know that as an Israeli citizen, I'm not paying the price of a Palestinian in Gaza or a Palestinian in the West Bank, but the suffering of people in different degrees is still a suffering. And holding the pictures of those children lost their lives in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Iran, and also in Israel is a way to show that everyone is losing in a war. The only people that are benefiting something are people like Trump and Netanyahu, maybe some oil companies that are making a lot of profit from these wars.
Is the anti-war movement in Israel growing?
Yeah, it started with a few dozens of people on the first week, and now we are a few thousands of people. In the first week, there were 90% of support among the Israeli Jewish population of the war, and now it declined to 60-something support within 5 weeks. It's rapidly declining, and I think people understand that it's not like
that's
it's
a
not
big
like
decline,
what the government
more
is
than I
trying
was
to sell
expecting.
us. They told us it's going to be a quick war. We will achieve, the democracy, or securing the government of Iran falling down. And we see this is not the truth. Not only that they're not winning, but also if you claim you fight for the Iranian people, why do you attack their oil? Why do you attack your infrastructure, the economy? Why do you kill so many people in Iran? Why do you make 4 million Iranians refugees? I think those lies are slowly just being stripped away.
Are more Israelis refusing to serve in the army?
Well, in this war, we didn't see yet a case of a refusnik saying that they will not serve in the Iranian war, but you could see a lot of people that are in the reserve army saying that that's it. They're not going into Lebanon. They're not going back to Gaza. They're refusing. Our movement called on reservniks and soldiers to be holding a morality of keeping humans' lives, families, children in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon. I think that we need to remember that it's a tough atmosphere to be an Israeli that is resisting the war. I'm standing here in the court right now. In front of me, there's a group of right-wing mob activists that came here to arrest me, and they're trying to get my attention. And people came to my home. We get arrested. It's not easy to do what we do, but we're trying to create the atmosphere of making it possible, making it normal, making it mainstream, to be saying that it's the patriotic thing to do, to resist the occupation, to support Israeli-Palestinian peace, to support the end of this forever war in Lebanon or Iran or the West Bank. And I think we are gaining and growing.
Since you brought...
What's so frustrating about being just a civilian, just a regular person, just everyday person living in all of these nation states is how disempowered we are. How, like he's talking about, it is a very concerted, consistent effort in order to move the needle, where we have these leaders that are able to make decisions of like, oh yeah, we'll bomb this place. Doesn't require much work for them. It's illegal, it's immoral, it's war crimes, like a war crime that's happening, but like for the resistance, we have to have numbers and schedule things and signs and a lot of resilience. And it just highlights the power imbalance that we have to show up in such large numbers with a lot of anger in order for them to do anything. But it is important and necessary for us to actually protect people. So it's cool that he is doing this.
This up that you're
and the
standing
people that
right now in
are
court
doing this.
right before you go in. In fact, this is a separate case than you being arrested this weekend. And I'm wondering if you can explain what happened last week when you were followed home by a group of right-wing activists and why you are in court today.
Yes, one other arm of the state to persecute us and to try and silence us is not only the police that is being violent and dispersing us in a very aggressive way, it's also organized right-wing groups that is chasing us, finding out our addresses, coming to our homes, attacking us, bringing all of a sudden in the middle of the night a few dozen people behind your apartment door. Coming and blocking your car, finding you in the middle of the street. And this is a reality that is growing. They get the back of the police. They're never being arrested. They're never being, having to pay for their actions. So I'm trying to get a restraint order from court against a few of them. And this is maybe one of the only tools that we have apart from organizing and protecting ourselves.
I also wanted to ask you about what happened on Saturday. When you were arrested, you have the protesters being told that you can't protest because of public security. Yet when the sirens went off, you were held in a police bus, and while everyone else ran into shelters, you were not able to go because the police didn't let you out of the bus?
We weren't allowed. They claimed that they're arresting us because we're violating the emergency measurements of the Home Front Command, and we're jeopardizing ourselves. But then we weren't on the police bus. We were arrested. I was handcuffed, and then we all heard the sirens, and we told the police, allow us to go to the shelters. We are above the biggest shelter in Tel Aviv. Allow us to go off the bus and get into the shelter. And they said, it's your problem. You decided to protest in the middle of the war. And we started shouting at them and demanding to be protected from a missile that can hit us. And they really refused. Eventually, after the siren ended, we had maybe seconds before a hit, they allowed us to go to a lobby of a building full of glass windows, which is not a secure situation. And they told us to lie on the ground and to be maybe protected. This is a risk of our lives. This is something that is breaking also the law. No one is allowed to prevent you to be in shelter while there's a siren, and the police is breaking the law in Israel.
On Sunday, Knesset member Ayman Odeh, chair of the Hadash Ta'al, wrote on social media, quote, the police's conduct yesterday at the anti-war demonstration alongside a blatant violation of the High Court of Justice ruling is yet further proof that we're in the midst of a historic crossroads. This is an existential struggle for the future here, for freedom of expression, for democratic values, and for the right to live with dignity, security, and equality, and above all, to stop living by the sword and to strive for true peace. I strengthen and stand in solidarity with the thousands of citizens who went out yesterday to demonstrate despite everything and who stood firm in the face of the fascists. Next week will already be tens of thousands. For the more they suppress and silence us, the more we will multiply and the more we will break through. If you can explain, Loni, what the Hadash Ta'al party is, who Alex Odeh is, and his reference to the High Court saying you could protest.
Ayman Odeh is the head of Hadash Ta'al party in the Knesset, which represent the Palestinian minority in Israel. There are around 4 political parties that represent the Palestinians in Israel, which comprise 20% of the entire population, the entire citizens of Israel. And he's the leader of the left-wing party among these parties. And he refers to a discussion in the hearing in the Supreme Court of Israel, asking the question whether it's legal to have the right to demonstrate even though there's war. We come to the Supreme Court and we tell them there's always war in Israel. You say it can last for months, for years. Does it mean that we never have the right to protest against the war? So we brought it as a constitutional question to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is now in discussion. It will rule on Thursday around the question whether it's still legal and we still have the right to protest, even though there are special security and emergency measurements of the Home Front Command in Israel. They said to the police that they are not allowed to disperse us until there's a discussion, until there's a ruling. But the police acted upon the demand of the minister Ben-Gvir, who demanded to see arrests.
You know, I confused Ayman Oda's name with Alex Oda, the 41-year-old Palestinian-American activist and poet who was killed decades ago in 1985 in Los Angeles by a pipe bomb that exploded as he entered his Santa Ana, California office. The FBI classified the bombing of his office. It was the Office of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee as a domestic terrorist attack linked to, quote, Jewish extremists. I want to turn to Ofer Kasef as we leave, because you have to go into court. A member of the Israeli Knesset, like Ayman Oda, with the Hadash Ta'al coalition. He says he was assaulted by police during the dispersal of Saturday's anti-war protest. This is Ofer Kasef speaking out against the war on Democracy Now! Last month.
Those governments or those imperialists and their partners is the real reason is simply to do whatever they can in order to achieve their own economic and political
I need to step out for a sec,
interests
but I'll be right back. I'll keep this playing.
of the peoples, including the people of Iran and the people of Israel. Unfortunately, neither of them is really interested in our well-being or in the people of Iran or the American people in their own welfare and good. So, and that's the main issue. This is an imperialist aggression against the Iranian people. It's not against the regime. They want us to believe it's against the regime. It is against the people of Iran eventually. And history proves that. And we, in the anti-occupation, anti-genocide, peace movement in Israel, we know that it's very difficult now at the moment to take to the streets and to demonstrate because of the missiles and also because of the limitations posed by the government under the guise of emergency situation. But we know what is at stake. We know that the real interest of the governments are against the interest of the peoples, and we do whatever we can in order to protest and to stop this bloodshed.
So that was Ofer Kasef, member of the Israeli Knesset and the leftist Hadash Ta'al party. He also was at the protests and says he was assaulted. Alon Lee Green, I want to thank you for being with us, co-director of the Israeli-Palestinian grassroots group Standing Together, organizer of Saturday's anti-war protest in Israel, arrested at the anti-war protest in Tel Aviv. He is now in court on another case. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
I'm back just in time. Okay. So, moving to the literature portion of today's broadcast, let's talk about Robespierre. Robespierre. Maximilien François Marie Isidore de Robespierre was a French lawyer and statesman widely recognized as one of the most influential figures of the French Revolution. Robespierre fervently campaigned for the voting rights of all men and their unimpeded admission to the National Guard. Additionally, he advocated for the right to petition, the right to bear arms in self-defense, and the abolition of the Atlantic slave trade. A radical Jacobin leader, Robespierre was elected as a deputy to the National Convention in September 1792, and in July 1793, he was appointed a member of the Committee of Public Safety. Robespierre faced growing disillusionment with other revolutionaries, which led him to argue for the harsh measures of the Reign of Terror. Increasingly, members of the convention turned against him, and accusations of excesses came to a head on 9 Thermidor. Robespierre was arrested, and with around 90 others, he was executed without trial. A figure deeply divisive during his lifetime, Robespierre's views and policies continue to evoke controversy. His legacy has been heavily influenced by his actual and perceived participation in repression of the revolution's opponents, but he is notable for his progressive views for the time. Academic and popular discourse continues to engage in debates surrounding his legacy and reputation, particularly his ideas of virtue in regard to the revolution and its violence. Okay, so this is a figure that will be just looming over the entire work of the Scarlet Pimpernel, this aristocratic propaganda. So I wanted to give a little background on him, and then also read this. Prospectus for le défenseur de la Constitution. So this is something that he wrote. To get a little bit of an idea of what the people were fighting for, to set the stage so that we're humanizing the masses, because this book will try to make people look like animals and like they are incredibly violent for no reason, as opposed to people starving and being oppressed and not having the resources that they need. Okay. Reason and the public interest began the revolution. Intrigue and ambition have halted it. The vices of tyrants and slaves have changed it into a painful state of trouble and crisis. The majority of the nation wants to rest under the auspices of the new constitution, on the breast of freedom and peace. What causes have deprived it of this double advantage up till now? Ignorance and division. The majority desires the good, but it neither knows the means to reach this goal nor the obstacles that distance them from it. Even the best intentioned of men differ on the questions most strictly related to the general happiness. All the enemies of the Constitution borrow the name and language of patriotism to spread error, discord, and false principles. Writers prostitute their venal pens to this odious enterprise. It is thus that public opinion is excited and becomes disorganized. The general will becomes powerless and invalid, and patriotism, without a system, without a plan, and without a determined objective, acts slowly and fruitlessly, or sometimes seconds, through blind impetuosity, the evil projects of the enemies of our freedom. In this situation, one means alone is left to us to save the public thing, and that's the enlightenment of the zeal of good citizens in order to lead them towards a common goal, to rally all of them to the principles of the Constitution and the general interest, to bring into broad daylight the true causes of our ills, and to indicate the remedies, to develop in the eyes of the nation the reasons, the general view, and the consequences of the political operations that have an influence over the fate of the state and its liberty, to analyze the public conduct of the personalities who play the principal roles in the theater of revolution, to cite before the tribunal of opinion and truth those who with ease escaped from the tribunal of the laws, and who can decide the destiny of France and the universe. I mean, that's ambitious. This is without, but yeah, if people are willing to engage, there could be large-scale change. This is without a doubt the greatest service a citizen can render to the public cause. A periodical that would fulfill this project seemed to me to be the occupation most worthy of friends of the fatherland and humanity. I dare to undertake this. The spirit that guides it is announced by its title, the Defender of the Constitution. Placed since the beginning of our revolution at the center of political events, I saw from up close the torturous march of tyranny. I saw the most dangerous of our enemies are not those who openly declared themselves as such, and I will work to see that this knowledge be made useful for the salvation of my country. Yeah, people who claim to be like friends, that these people can have a more nefarious impact because they are using subterfuge to accomplish their ends. I need not say that only the love of justice and truth will guide my pen. It's on this condition alone that, having descended from the tribune of the French Senate, one can still climb to that of the universe and speak, not to the assembly, which can be agitated by the shock of diverse interests, but to humankind, whose interest is that of reason and general happiness. Perhaps when once one has left the theater to sit among the spectators, one can better judge the stage and the actors. I mean, that's something we were talking about earlier, of like having distance from events. At the very least, it seems that once having escaped the maelstrom of affairs, one breathes in an atmosphere more peaceful and pure, and one has a more certain judgment on men and things, much like he who flees the tumult of the city to climb to the summit of the mountain feels the calm of nature penetrate his soul and his ideas expand with the horizon. Wow, that's a beautiful way of putting that. He's a good writer. I have seen well-known members of the legislature who bring together two functions of almost equal importance, recount and appraise in their writings the next day the operations in which they participated the day before in the National Assembly. Though this last occupation sufficed in keeping me completely occupied when it was confided to me, I nevertheless applauded those legislators who rendered that striking homage to the necessity for, and the dignity of, the ministry of philosophical and political writers. I even believe that they have a double right to the esteem of their fellows if they fulfill both tasks with the same integrity. He who declares himself the censor of vice, the apostle of reason and truth, must neither less pure nor less courageous than the legislator himself. The errors of the latter leave a great resource to public spirit and opinion. But when opinion is degraded, when public spirit is twisted, the last hope of freedom is annihilated. The writer who prostitutes his pen to hatred, to despotism or corruption, betraying the cause of patriotism and humanity, is more vile than the prevaricating magistrate, more criminal than even the representative who sells out the rights of the people. Like what we were talking about, representatives selling out their constituents. Such is my profession of faith. Such will be the spirit and objective of the work that I consecrate to the freedom of my country. This work will appear every Thursday. Each issue will be 3 or 4 pages long. We really have lost a sense of, of the necessity for good writers. This is what has driven revolution in many ways. I mean, that's not always the case. Clearly. And it also can be classist and like Western to prioritize the written word, but like oration, speaking, writing, that the word, like with a capital W, language has a lot of power. There is a reason why they are engaged in so much censorship, because they are afraid of what we think, what we have to say, how we are individuals with our own thoughts and opinions, that it makes us more easily controlled when they are able to control the things that we see and what we can or can't say. And that a direct way to push back against this is to be using our voices in the ways that we can. Talking about dismantling these systems of oppression, organizing, creating mutual aid, like that collective you were talking about, Aliana, and striking, unionizing, protesting, making sure that we have demands and that the powers that be feel pressure from us in order to meet these demands. But I mean, Robespierre's legacy, like that little excerpt said, is complicated because he got to be kind of paranoid and there was a lot of death that happened. Like, I don't necessarily agree that there were some children that were killed during the Reign of Terror, but also the fact that his ideals were founded on the principle of human rights, that he actually had an abolitionist perspective. When you consider the French Empire and its colonial extraction and dominance, oppression, that fighting for abolition is a very direct way to resist what was happening there. So that's like a little bit of an example of what's happening behind the scenes during this time period that we're reading about. I know I was kind of all over the place with that, but there you go. I guess you can take what you will from that. So we are still on chapter 1, but it is setting the scene. It already is describing the masses as inhuman. I think it even uses that word, which just goes to show the levels of dehumanization that the aristocracy and ruling class would go to in order to support their own position of power. That Baroness Orsi, the author, was a fascist sympathizer early in the Nazi regime, and that her family, her father specifically, was making it so that he was industrializing their land, and it was forcing workers out of jobs. And they tried reasoning, they tried asking for things that they needed, and when that wasn't listened to, they defaced their property, because duh. And the Baroness was like, that had a huge impact, I was so scared. That's like, so you were more scared than like possibly not being able to like feed your family or live? Okay. Anyway, that's a little bit of the background of her. Where did I leave off? Okay, and so you will see the Committee of Public Safety, the one that Robespierre joined, that was for the revolution. This is mentioned frequently. The guards at the gates had been doubled. The sergeants in command had been threatened with death, whilst liberal rewards were offered for the capture of these daring and impudent Englishmen, talking about the people who are coming to rescue the French nobles. There was a sum of 5,000 francs promised to the man who laid hands on the mysterious and elusive Scarlet Pimpernel. Everyone felt that Bibot would be that man, and Bibot allowed that belief to take firm root in everybody's mind. And so, day after day, people came to watch him at the West Gate, so as to be present when he laid hands on any fugitive aristo who, perhaps, might be accompanied by that mysterious Englishman. "Bah!" he said to his trusted corporal. "Citoyen Robespierre was a fool, had it been me now at that North Gate last week." Citoyen Bibot spat on the ground to express his contempt for his comrade's stupidity. "How did it happen, citoyen?" asked the corporal. "Robespierre was at the gate, keeping good watch," began Bibot pompously, as the crowd closed in round him, listening eagerly to his narrative. "We've all heard of this meddlesome Englishman, this accursed Scarlet Pimpernel. He won't go through my gate, morbleu," which is like a swear meaning the devil, "unless he be the devil himself." Appropriate curse for the context. But Robespierre was a fool. The market carts were going through the gates. There was one laden with casks and driven by an old man, with a boy beside him. Robespierre was a bit drunk, but he thought himself very clever. He looked into the casks, most of them at least, and saw they were empty, and let the cart go through. A murmur of wrath and contempt went round the group of ill-clad wretches, ill-clad, meaning what actually is happening is that they don't have money or means for more clothing. But the way it's saying it, they're ill-clad. That's such a classist way to be looking at people in lower classes who don't have the means to buy clothes. The the group of ill-clad wretches who were crowded round Citoyen Bibot. Half an hour later, continued the sergeant, up comes a captain of the guard with a squad of some dozen soldiers with him. He has a cart. Has a cart gone through? He asks of Robespierre breathlessly. Yes, said Robespierre, not half an hour ago. And you've let them escape, shouts the captain furiously. You'll go to the guillotine for this, citoyen sergeant. That cart held concealed the ci-devant Duc de Chaly and all his family. What? Thunders Robespierre, aghast. Aye, and the driver was none other than that cursed Englishman, the Scarlet Pimpernel. A howl of execration greeted this tale. Execration is like cursing. Citoyen Robespierre had paid for his blunder on the guillotine, but what a fool. Oh, what a fool. Bibot was laughing so much at his own tale that it was some time before he could continue. After them, my men, shouts the captain, he said after a while. Remember the reward. After them, they cannot have gone far. And with that, he rushes through the gate, followed by his dozen soldiers. But it was too late, shouted the crowd excitedly. They never got them. Curse that Robespierre for his folly. He deserved his fate. Fancy not examining those casks properly. But these sallies seemed to amuse Citoyen Bibot exceedingly. He laughed until his sides ached, and the tears streamed down his cheeks. So they're also trying to use this, like, dehumanization of, like, they're so cruel. They're laughing at all of this violence and death of aristocrats. It's like, yeah, when you've been oppressed for so long and you have nothing to lose, what do you think is going to happen? But it is a bad faith framing of what the people were like, I'm sure. He laughed until his sides ached, and the tears streamed down his cheeks. Nay, nay, he said at last. Those aristos weren't in the cart. The driver was not the Scarlet Pimpernel. What? No, the captain of the guard was that damned Englishman in disguise, and every one of his soldiers aristos. The crowd this time said nothing. The story certainly savored of the supernatural, and though the Republic had abolished God, it had not quite succeeded in killing the fear of the supernatural in the hearts of the people. Truly, that Englishman must be the devil himself. The sun was sinking low down in the west. Bibot prepared himself to close the gates. En avant, the carts, he said. Some dozen covered carts were drawn up in a row, ready to leave town, in order to fetch the produce from the country close by for the market next morning. They were mostly well known to Bibot, as they went through his gate twice every day on their way to and from the town. He spoke to one or two of their drivers, mostly women, and was at pains to examine the inside of their carts. You never know, he would say, and I'm not going to be caught like that fool Robespierre. The women who drove the carts usually spent their day on the Place de Grève, beneath the platform of the guillotine, knitting and gossiping, whilst they watched the rows of tumbrils arriving with the victims of the reign of terror claimed every day. Knitting while watching the executions. I can understand that behavior. That sounds like something I might do. Like if we're thinking about all of the fascists in power, and if they had such a fate, you know, it would probably be like an event, a sight that we would like to behold. Where was this footnote? Okay. The Larousse Dictionary of the 19th century characterizes the Reign of Terror, or simply the Terror, as the dictatorship of despair that put the entire country into a state of siege. The Terror officially began on September 5th, 1793, and ended on July 27th, 1794. It was a response to the increase of civil and international threats to the new republic. A series of decrees concentrated state power, accelerated juridical procedures? Are you talking about like judicial? Like, but with juries? I've never read that word before. Hello, Tan. Thank you. How are you? It's good to see you. Druidical. I think it's kind of like an absurd thing, like with my hat, to like declare yourself a sex symbol. So I think it's funny, but I also think that I am. Hey, how is this pronounced? Juridical. Okay. Of or relating to the administration of justice or the office of a judge. That's a word I haven't encountered before. How are you, Tan? Okay, and then we do have another footnote coming up soon, so I'm gonna get that ready. It was great fun to see the aristos arriving for the reception of Madame la Guillotine, and the places close by the platform were very much sought after. Bibot, during the day, had been on duty on the place. He recognized most of the old hats, tricoteuses as they were called, who sat there and knitted, whilst head after head fell beneath the knife, and they themselves got quite bespattered with the blood of those cursed aristos. I'm good. Super busy. What are you reading? I'm so curious. I hope you have some time to relax. I guess that's probably where the reading comes in. I'm doing all right. We're living in a war-torn hellscape. I mean, the U.S. isn't war-torn, but yeah, we're making do. Resisting in the ways that we can, I guess. Okay, this is the footnote. The tricoteuses belonged to the folklore of the Revolution, and Charles Dickens immortalized these women in A Tale of Two Cities. The tricoteuses would knit during popular assemblies and meetings of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Most notably, they would sit beneath the guillotine, delighting in the spectacle and knitting their way unconcernedly through the gory events. Their indifference to the murders they were witnessing has become proverbial. Yeah, because they're watching their oppressors actually have consequences. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Wow, and news articles. How are you liking Thus Spoke Zarathustra? That's fun. Like, it's not necessarily, like, fun, but interesting. Okay. Hey, la mère, said Bibot to one of those horrible hags. What have you got there? Which means, like, mother. He had seen her earlier in the day with her knitting and the whip of her cart close beside her. Now she had fastened a row of curly locks to the whip handle, all colors from gold to silver, fair to dark, and she stroked them with her huge, bony fingers as she laughed at Bibot. I made friends with Madame Guillotine's lover, she said with a coarse laugh. He cut these off for me from the heads as they rolled down. He has promised me some more tomorrow, but I don't know if I shall be at my usual place. Ah, how is that, la mère? Asked Bibot, who, hardened soldier that he was, could not help shuddering at the awful loathsomeness of this semblance of a woman, with her ghastly trophy on the handle of her whip. Would he actually be that upset with seeing the hair? I don't think so. Mentally challenging is how I'll put it. Yes, that's very true. Where are you at? In Wuthering Heights? I actually finished Wuthering Heights and moved on to The Scarlet Pimpernel. Looking at it from a Marxist, Leninist, Du Boisian deconstruction framework, because it is very overtly aristocratic propaganda. So, just providing some context and where some of the fallacies are. But I've posted the readings on YouTube if you want to watch them for the rest of Wuthering Heights. My grandson has got the smallpox, she said with a jerk of her thumb towards the inside of her cart. Some say it's the plague. If it is, I shan't be allowed to come into Paris tomorrow. At the first mention of the word smallpox, Bibot had stepped hastily backwards, and when the old hag spoke of the plague, he retreated from her as fast as he could. Curse you, he muttered, whilst the whole crowd hastily avoided the cart, leaving it standing all alone in the midst of the place. The old hag laughed. Curse you, citoyenne, for being a coward, she said. Bah, what a man to be afraid of sickness. Morbleu, the plague! Everyone was awestruck and silent, filled with horror for the loathsome malady, the one thing which still had the power to arouse terror and disgust in these savage, brutalized creatures. Yeah, calling them savage and brutalized. It's like, I mean, they have been brutalized. Does she mean they're brutal themselves? Because they have been brutalized by the oppressive monarchy. Get out with you and your plague-stricken brood, shouted Bibot hoarsely. And with another rough laugh and coarse jest, the old hag whipped up her lean nag and drove her cart out of the gate. This incident had spoilt the afternoon. The people were terrified of those two horrible curses, the two maladies which nothing could cure, and which were the precursors of an awful and lonely death. They hung about the barricades, silent and sullen for a while, eyeing one another suspiciously, avoiding each other as if by instinct, lest the plague lurked already in their midst. Presently, as in the case of Robespierre, a captain of the guard appeared suddenly, but he was known to Bibot, and there was no fear of his turning out to be a sly Englishman in disguise. A cart! He shouted breathlessly, even before he had reached the gates. What cart? Asked Bibot roughly. Driven by an old hag. A covered cart. There were a dozen. An old hag who said her son had the plague? Yes. You've not let them go? Mon Dieu, said Bibot, whose purple cheeks had suddenly become white with fear. The cart contained the ci-devant Comtesse de Tournay and her 2 children, all of them traitors and condemned to death. And their driver? Muttered Bibot, as a superstitious shudder ran down his spine. Sacré tonnerre, said the captain, meaning damned thunder. But it is feared that it was the accursed Englishman himself, the Scarlet Pimpernel. All right. That's the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called Dover, the Fisherman's Rest. So, we were introduced to the Scarlet Pimpernel, actually heard him speak. He loves disguises, which is hella queer, which I can appreciate if he wasn't trying to maintain the system of dominance by these aristocrats. But I will be giving the Pimpernel a lot of personality. So we'll wait for that. Okay. I think that's going to be it for me today. Tomorrow I'm going to watch that video on, what was that called? Shame, Sex, Attraction, the author who wrote that book, talking about conversion therapy, since it was the ban of conversion therapy was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court, which is unconscionable, immoral, a really disgusting thing to do. So I want to talk about what some of these experiences are like for people in conversion therapy, not to be like trauma porn about it, but actually get more of a realistic version of what can happen and what does happen, why it has to be stopped. And then get into more organizing stuff, because I want to go over the aspects of unionizing and various steps of that process. Then there was something else I was going to talk about, but I'll remember it. Yeah, you can check it out. I have it on a playlist that's just literature story time. So you can look for it there if you remember from where I left off last. That may be an adventure for you. But it was really nice chatting with you all. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. And I will see you soon. Are you still uploading Patreon? I was, and then I reached a limit for my uploads. So I'm figuring that out, and I'm just putting on the videos that are not able to be uploaded to YouTube. I know, I need like more subscribers or something. So I'm going to figure that out, but yeah, I'll keep you updated on that. All right. Hey, I'll see you later. Okay, bye.